All right, everybody, welcome back to BRAP. We have a great show planned for our listeners this evening. We have returning guest Jeff Grubb joining us. Jeff, welcome back to BRAP, sir.
Thank you so much for having me. I am really happy to be back.
Absolutely. What a time to have you back with some of this big breaking news from yesterday with Bethesda now officially being part of Xbox, and the debate of whether or not what does some mean, are all games going to be exclusive, things like that. We'll go ahead and talk about that later on tonight. And today is Mario Day, so happy Mario Day, everyone. Talk about we're gonna give a little bit of shout out to Mario here in just a sec. But on that note, gotta let my man Slow-Mo back slapping here. What's up, Slow-Mo?
How's it going, guys? Sorry, I'm a little late. Kid duty, all that good stuff.
No worries. Yeah, you're just in time because we're gonna kick off the best intro in podcasting right now.
Ooh.
All right, everyone. It is Wednesday night, and it is BRAP time, and we have a great show planned tonight. We have returning guest again, Jeff Grubb. Jeff, thank you again for coming on, man. It was like I said, timing is everything, and the timing of having you come on the show is just awesome, considering all the big news that we've had this week. But also want to give a big shout out to the panel here: Slow-Mo Backslap, Gaming Forte, B Money 101, and we have OBM, One Bad Mother or Some Bad Mother, as he. You should change your name, man. Just for.
Yeah. All right. I'll get to it.
Yeah, it was filling for Mr. Eric Jackson, who couldn't make it tonight. Eric actually just got his PlayStation 5, so I don't blame him. He's been waiting to get his hands on one of these on a PlayStation 5 console, and as you know, these next generation consoles are super hard to get. I mean, it's just like it's almost damn near impossible, I feel like, to get an Xbox Series S or Xbox Series X, a PlayStation 5, and I don't think it's going to get any better. I was actually watching Bloomberg Technology, I think, on TV the other day, and they're talking about the chip shortage that's happening right now, and how it's affecting not just gaming, but the automotive industry, phones, tablets, computers, things like that. I just don't. It sounds like it's not going to get better anytime soon. So, if you can get, go ahead, man.
It's pretty interesting that you can't just walk in the store and see an Xbox on the shelf. Somebody told me over like the holiday that you would be able to do that, and then they told me that you'll be like by February.
Who's they?
By February you'll be able to walk into a store and just see an Xbox. You just see a hyena sitting on a counter somewhere. But then again, it's funny that things like that actually were said. And I'm gonna leave the person
he's
alone
alluding
that said
to me. And what I will say is,
here we go.
I could buy an Xbox off of Best Buy for the past 3 days, so I don't know what y'all problem is.
No, there's a
difference. Y'all need to look better. Is what I think.
There's a difference, sir. Were you able to put that thing in a cart and actually purchase it, or were you just hoping that you would get it in the cart and buy it?
If I wanted one, I could definitely get one from Best Buy, or probably would have been here already, considering how Best Buy. Shout out to Best Buy because I like the way they do things. But yeah, absolutely. So I don't know what you're doing, man.
I'm a little confused.
For the record, I did try to put one of those in the cart, and it didn't work out.
It didn't go through.
I had to see if that was going. I mean, I wasn't really worried about it going through, but it
was available for someone somewhere. And that's all I need to hear. All I need to say.
But you told me you were going to walk into a store and see one sitting on a shelf. That's what you told me. I'm just going off that.
All right.
Who walks into stores right now? I mean, it's a pandemic.
It depends. If you live in Texas, it's completely open. You can walk in anything you want.
Hey, speaking of Texas, by the way, totally random and non-game related. Apparently, the Texas Rangers are going to open up their home opener. They're allowing capacity seating.
Yes, they are, because the state is open. They can do whatever they want now.
Does anyone think this is a good idea, bad idea? Like,
the next time we write a zombie movie, we know where to start ground zero.
We know where ground zero was.
Yeah, we're long past the point of ideas and thinking. We're not doing any of that stuff anymore. We're just going to baseball games and stuffing hot dogs down our throats, not masks on.
COVID be damn. I want my beer, peanuts, and hot dogs. Yeah, I just think it's really interesting that this is happening. And again, I don't want to beat a dead horse because we've talked about this. I just feel like this is my frustration with how this country's managed this pandemic. It's like, okay, numbers are down 3 weeks in a row. Let's open it up. Free for all. It's like, no, we can't do that.
Hey, you ain't got to wear a mask. Let's go.
Yeah, no mask. Oh boy, and then we're gonna be, I don't know. Anyhow,
well, back to the subject at hand, sir.
Yeah, back to the subject at hand. But I do want to, and this wasn't a topic, but since we're talking about the, how difficult it is to get these consoles right now. I mean these consoles, the PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series consoles. And I'll throw this question over to you, Jeff, as you're our special guest this evening. Do you think, Jeff, that maybe Microsoft and Sony should maybe delay the launch of these consoles?
No. No. Why? I mean, what's the point? People are buying them. People are going to have either not be able to buy them at all because they delayed them, or just have a hard time buying them. They were able to get some out there, start seeding an audience for big games that are going to start being ready to be released to someone. You got to start building that up at some point. It was always going to be painful. The pandemic made the chip shortage worse because it increased demand for chips. And a big problem was, like you alluded to, it decreased demand for cars for a little bit. And so all those chips, they stopped making those chips and they tried to shift that over to these next gen consoles and to the more expensive GPUs. But that stuff was always going to be a bottleneck no matter what. TSMC, the company that makes most of these chips, that actually fabricates them for companies like AMD and Microsoft and Nintendo and all these other ones. That company has limited capacity. It was always going to be a problem. And so you might as well just rip off the Band-Aid and just deal with the hurt, because in a year's time, when most people have their consoles that really, really, really wanted one, no one's going to remember this. They're going to be happy they have their console, and by the end of the generation, when they're counting the money from this generation, no one's going to remember it. No one's going to talk about this anymore. It's really just a small hurdle they need to get over, and once we're past it, it'll be ancient history.
Yeah. I agree 100% with him. I think, and the one key word that he used was the people that wanted one, that truly, truly wanted one, got their hands on one. Now there's still some people out there that want one that probably E just finally got his and we know he really wanted one. But for the most part, it's not hard to get one. You just got to be very, very persistent to get one. And the people that were like that,
it sounds like trying to get a vaccine.
What you say?
It's like you're making it sound like you're like people trying to get vaccines now. Like it's.
Well, it's different because I'm not even trying to get a vaccine. I'm just like, someone come to my door and tell me when it's okay. I'm not even going to pretend like I'm going to get one of those things. I write about video games in a basement. I'm just going to wait for someone to tell me it's okay.
Yeah.
I mean, something I think that is always kind of gets left out of this discussion is that financially, launch-wise, both Sony and Microsoft are doing great. Both of these consoles have launched better than anyone could have. Well, not anyone, but better than what they both expected them to. And so that's part of the reason why the hardware is so difficult to find. And it's part of the reason why they have been, celebrating their financial successes, their sales successes. So it's good that demand's up. It's finally showing a little bit more growth in the console market than we initially thought it would be. And I mean, it's just good for gaming overall. So I'm all for it.
And since when did a product shortage ever really hurt a brand anyways? I don't know. I just go back to like growing up, remembering remembering on the news,
Cabbage Patch Kids
shortage. Yeah. Remember watching moms like beat each other up in the store, trying to get the Cabbage Patch. And for like
you're not even exaggerating that, by the way, OBM. That actually was a thing. Like that happened.
It's still in my head, just like Forte.
Tickle Me Elmo was like that too.
Just people were getting stone cold stunners at Toys R Us.
Right. So, and that's and that creates like that pent up demand, or like just that brand value that I think goes beyond, even when the stock is available, that sort of has a lasting effect, and so I actually expect this to help out both Microsoft and Sony, going through the fall, when they do have stocks.
They're probably not going to have stock by the fall. That chip shortage is the real deal. To get into the weeds with that a little bit. When TSMC starts to bring other things online, the automobile industry probably is first in line. Because that, like, they're expecting to make 1.5 million to 5 million fewer automobiles this year worldwide just because of the chip shortage. And so when they're starting to build these things up, they're like, okay, well, we do have to serve this customer base, even though those chips are older chips that make less profit. That TSMC has already shifted as much capacity as he could to the very high demand console and GPU, CPU markets. And so as it's addressing this, it's going to do automobiles first, and then stuff like medical equipment and all those other things that use similar chips. Not exactly the most cutting edge that go into gaming hardware. And this stuff is expensive. It takes a lot of time. I'm sure that they are trying to get more fabrication facilities up and online for consoles. It's just that's probably second in line, and we're just gonna have to wait. It's gonna take time, months and months and months before it's really addressed, and we're probably gonna be well into 2022 before people feel like, we are over this hump. So it's gonna be painful for a time, but for a little bit longer.
They didn't already condition people to come to the realization that it's going to be hard to get these systems. So at a certain point, it's like, just keep going what works. And as these systems release, and the thing is, the retailers, they release them in pretty steady cadences. It just comes down to the fact that you just got to be persistent to get one. Like, I know GameStop went live yesterday. Matter of fact, they went live yesterday with a big batch of them. And then Best Buy, like Slomo said, over the last 3 days. So it's easy. I'm not going to say it's easy to get them. You just, like I said, once again, persistence is key. And if you do it, you'll get one.
Yeah. So Forte, I mean, you being the retail expert here, because you
no such thing, sir. I wish I was.
You are the retail expert because of where you work, but because you're tied into the industry from a retail perspective. But have they said anything to you about like more shipments coming in, or giving you any idea what that might look like?
No, they ain't said nothing to nobody, man. They said the last thing we heard was August, and that's the last thing everybody heard was August. August is the supposedly the turning point of when you'll be able to walk in the store and get one. But I've been telling people for like the last couple of weeks, I was like, that August thing, put that on hold until probably later this year, because the fact that like he just said, the chip shortage, that's real. That's beyond, like, even if they got systems, like they got systems, but they have no chips to put into them. So it's like at a certain point, it's like how much of the stock that's out there, minus, scalpers and stuff, but that's in retail, how much of that is the fact that these companies and they're just, sparsing out their inventory, to basically just not have, like, blow their wad all at one time. Because I know people that work at like Amazon and stuff like that, and they tell me they say, "No, we got stock. We just put it out, interval basis and stuff. They'll do like a couple this week, they'll do a few this week, they may do some in a row, depending on what's going on." So that also might have a lot to do with the fact that people think that there's systems out there, because they consistently put them out, but it's just that they're just feeding you with a little spoon every once in a while. But once that inventory is gone, it really just comes down to how fast they can manufacture these chips and get them back in stock on a consistent basis, and not have to share with every other electronic company that needs those chips. That's the problem.
All the big names need them. NVIDIA needs
exactly.
it for them. And NVIDIA is also using Samsung now. But the Switch is on TSMC, AMD, all of their stuff. So like the consoles run on AMD, both the GPU and the CPU in there. Like the whole system on a chip is TSMC. But so are its CPUs and its GPUs, and like that. Those shortages are going to continue. Now maybe there is some light. We're starting to see that the Ryzen chips are starting to end up on shelves a little bit. Like people are starting to say like, if you want to go buy one for MSRP. That is possible more and more frequently now. So maybe that's the beginning of the light at the end of the tunnel. But it just seems like consoles got behind AMD here for a little bit, and we'll see if they get to the front of the line anytime soon.
Wow. And then the other thing is with the looming, there's that rumor that the Nintendo Switch Pro, whatever they're going to call it, could be releasing this fall. That's probably going to be, you got to imagine if things don't improve, that might be launched in limited quantities.
Oh, so very limited if it actually happens.
Yeah. And I'm already, look, I'm going to have to line up at my local GameStop and put my pre-order money down for that. Cause I'm glad I did it. That's the only reason I have the Xbox Series X and PlayStation 5 right now. Cause I did that.
I wonder with the Switch, I'm a little bit hopeful. There are some rumors when I think came out of Game Reactor that they are going to be completely replacing the Tegra X1 chip, which is the one that's on TSMC. And if they're completely replacing it, I would imagine that they are going to go with Samsung's process, the 8 nanometer process. That will be super efficient. It would save them a lot of power and still enable really good performance. And that's what NVIDIA currently uses. Now, we saw that the NVIDIA GPUs were, those are also impossible to get. So I'm not that hopeful. But at least maybe that won't add to TSMC's backup. So maybe it won't cause any delays with like the PlayStation 5 or the Xbox Series X. So there's some hope there.
It just lets you know how big of a problem it is where all of this stuff is coming from one place. And if they have one hiccup, it just buries everything.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I guess that explains too some of the pivots from Sony when it comes to their first party supporting only next gen versus going cross gen, right? I'm guessing once that they learned about this backup, that probably changed their plans.
Probably. Yeah. They knew about this back in September and October last year.
Yeah, I think they might have had, I'm sure they had projections, and there was the optimistic side of the projection, and there was the pessimistic side, and I bet they ended up closer to the pessimistic side in terms of how many consoles they actually delivered. And so like when they are, looking at those projections, they're like, okay, we can sort of start saying, here's when we're going to have a certain cadence of games. Here's what people can expect Ratchet and Clank in the launch window. And then as it starts to get a little bit more pessimistic, and then as, the developer says, hey, we could use a little bit more time, it becomes easier to say, okay, you know what, take more time. Let's sell maybe 1 million more consoles by the time you get this game out and ready. And if they could do that, then even better, it's a bigger audience they can sell to. So it's just kind of, when you end up on that pessimistic side, it makes it easier to elongate your entire stretch of plans. So I think you're absolutely right to say that this elongated their plans for sure.
Yeah. I'm going to grab these super chats real quick. Michael, I'm going to put you the last name here. I'm just going to call you Michael C for right now with the $5 super chat. Thank you, Michael. Says, I won my Series X bundle for $100. Nice. Sounds like you got that off a raffle. It's awesome. And then the Ash and Luca with the $5 super chat. Hey, Luca.
Lord.
Thank you. Luca says Xbox.
No, that's her walking away from Xbox.
Oh, walking away from Xbox. Is that what that is? Let me go back. Oh, yes, it is. Oh, because does that have anything to do with her recent PC purchase?
Who knows at this point?
Tell you what, she got a very nice PC rig.
She got a PC that's better than most of ours.
Better than like probably all of ours, except for maybe slow-mo.
Except for, that's what I'm saying, probably not slow-mo.
Yeah,
definitely yours 4K.
Hers is very close to mine. She's got the Gigabyte 3070, which is slightly better than my Founders Edition. My CPU is still my CPU's overclocked and still a little bit better than hers, but her build is nice.
She's got a nice build. Yeah, I saw the
it's very nice.
Yeah, maybe think about maybe it's time for
jelly, man.
BRAP to upgrade. Well, you got to upgrade, Forte.
I will.
Can you upgrade? Now you want to talk about shortages? You want to talk about
listen?
Stuff?
Yeah, it's
try to get a GPU out here. I mean, look, I got the 3070. Individually, the way the Luca went is the best way to get a newer GPU because you
pre-built.
You're getting the pre-built. Yeah. Yep. If you try to go individually, I mean, it's like a lottery. I literally got lucky. I saw a Wario 64 tweet while I was waiting in the doctor's office, and I'm sitting here like,
I gotta go.
No. I'm on my phone, and I'm just sitting there, and I'm like, oh, this tweet was just 26 seconds ago. I still got a shot, and I just lucked out and got one. I didn't even want a 3070. I wanted the 3080.
That Python script up.
But I was, you know what? You know what? I was going to, but I said no. I'm not. I don't want to go that route. But no, I mean, I wanted to get a 3080, but I was so worried about scrolling through the list, and then as I'm scrolling, they were all selling out. That I literally just hit the first one that popped up, and it was just the 3070 Founders, and I was just let me get this in the car as fast as possible. So, I mean,
you lucked out, man, for sure.
Absolutely. If I can get a 3080. I'm gonna sell this 3070 because I really want a 3080. I think
3080 is pretty good.
Yeah,
good to have a 3080.
I know, man. If I can get a 3080, I'll be good for the next 2 years. I promise. I won't upgrade anything else.
2 years? Did you say 2 years?
Yeah,
you'll be good for 5 years with that card. Maybe.
Hey,
6.
Look, man. 2 years. 2 years. Okay.
I don't know, Forte. I've had my 2070 for 2 years, and I got the HD upgrade.
Once that 40 series comes out, then it's over with.
No, listen, man. Listen,
Forte,
y'all chasing
you have not
tail.
You have not seen the leaked benchmarks from the
I have seen the leaked benchmarks.
They're like double. I mean, I'm sorry.
Wait, Slomo. What are you talking about? I can't even talk today. Leaked benchmarks for what? The 40 series?
The next NVIDIA architecture is some of the leaked benchmarks are like double what Ampere is.
Wow. I might, you know what? On that note, I might just wait for the 40
Well, that's
series.
what I'm doing.
That's what I said I was going to do until,
No, you just went out and wanted to buy a new graphics card.
Look, man, I always say I'm gonna wait. That's the right thing to do.
Listen,
and then you see something available, you're just like, but I can enjoy better frames and ultra settings right now.
But you know what?
Little cyberpunk
never ever listen to it. See, now I just realized that I should never listen to my friend, my best friend, my co-host. I should never listen to him when it comes to advice on stuff when it comes to tech. Because he told I literally was gonna pull the trigger because I told him I was like, yo, I could get a 3090 right now. I said I could go get it. I said they're available at Micro Center. I got a person on the inside that I can literally go up. He said I just got to be there at a certain time and I can get it. And Slow-Mo was like, "Yo, you don't need all that." And then I was like, "Okay, you're right. I'll wait. I'll fall back."
It's a 3090, man.
It's still a simple fact. Listen, it's still the simple fact. Wait, okay, I'm gonna come back to you on that. Wait, hold on. I'm gonna come back. Wait, hold on. Let me just say this.
Okay, the 3090 is 10% faster than the 3080. But double the cost.
Okay.
All right.
But you're literally hold on. But look, but you're literally just bought a 3070. How much you pay for that 3070?
$500.
And how much are you going
MSRP?
And how much is those 4 series going to come out when you buy them in the next 2 years?
The one that I'm not buying if I get this 3080,
because you're not going to
wait. I get this 3080, I'm not going to buy the next. What is? I can't remember the name of the next architecture, but whatever. I'm not buying that. If I get this 3080, I'm not. I promise you. I'm telling you. Not
Slow-Mo, you literally just said it's double. You just said it's double what Ampere is. You just said it's double what Ampere is.
He's probably going to get it.
He's going to get it.
Yeah,
he literally just. What did he just say 20 seconds ago?
You know what? Forte,
he's like, you know what? I don't. I said I wasn't going to get it.
We have to remember March 10th, 2021, which is Mario Day, by the way, which we'll get into here in a sec. That Forte or Slow-Mo,
Shout out to Mario Odyssey being $39.99 right now.
Yes,
it's the only day you can get a Nintendo first party game at a discount.
Yes, because they
$40.
Hey, that's significant for a Nintendo game.
That's huge. Nintendo doesn't discount anything.
Because guess what? You'll be able to trade that game in at GameStop for $40 in about 5 weeks after that sale goes away.
How long
you get all for back? Today is a deal of the day. So if you go to GameStop's website, you can buy Mario Odyssey right now for $39.99. You can probably find it on other websites too. It's probably not just GameStop's.
Yeah.
But I guarantee you, if you buy that game now and you trade it in about 5 weeks, you will get all your money back.
Wow. Yeah.
I almost feel like buying it again just out of principle to say I bought a Nintendo first party game on sale.
Yeah, but
right.
Put it on Twitter. You did it. And get it and put it on Twitter.
It's like a bucket list item, you know?
No, but yeah, I agree with both. Like, I think I'm just pissed hearing Slow-Mo say that because he talked me out of a GPU. He talked me out of upgrading my CPU because I got an 8700K right now. I was like, yo,
There's
I need to upgrade
wrong with
this
your
CPU.
CPU, man.
He said, well, if you do that, that means you got to upgrade your motherboard because it's another architect. I was like, yeah, I know that, Slow-Mo. He said, yeah, but you should just wait. Your stuff is good. Your stuff is good. But then this dude is out here just buying stuff because he can buy it. Oh my god! All right, continue. With
All right, yeah.
I'll talk to Slow-Mo about this after.
Yeah, you guys.
I'm not even going to defend myself right now because we just derailing the show. Okay, so I'm not even going.
You guys, you guys. Yeah, look, if you guys want to see a continuation of this conversation, tune into DPS tomorrow night, 9 p.m.
Clearly, he's going to bring it up again.
Yes, he's going to. Like,
very sore with me right now.
Not right now. No, I'm gonna leave it alone. I'm gonna bring it up later.
Yeah, he's gonna.
We'll talk. It'll be the intro. It'll be part of the 20-minute intro to DPS tomorrow.
Oh my goodness! All right, so today's Mario Day 310 is I forget what it is. What it's at MA for the hashtag is I forget.
MAR10.
Thank you.
March 10th. Yeah.
MAR10. Yeah, it's Mario Day, and it's really for me at least. I'll give my thoughts on Mario here. First time playing, seeing, I guess I don't know, playing as a Mario character, Donkey Kong. That's how old I am, by the way.
I'm saying
playing Donkey. Okay, so I'm not, I'm not the elder statesman here only, but yeah, it was my first, and then Super Mario Brothers on the NES Instant Classic, and then, for me, one of the more memorable Mario games. There's two Mario games that really stand out for me. Super Mario Brothers on the Nintendo Entertainment System. And then you guys remember Mario 64 on the Nintendo 64? And I remember the first time, and this is the big, you probably remember this, Jeff, the big leap from 2D to 3D, right? Which completely changed the way we played games. Like I remember playing 3D games the first time and figuring like, okay, well, this feels weird. I had to get used to it because it had opened up the world of gaming, the levels so much in a way that I wasn't even used to. But that game, Mario 64, really stood out to me. Yeah. It's probably one of my favorite Mario games of all time.
We weren't expecting it, right? Like it was. I think when you first hear about the Ultra 64, which was what it was called before it's Nintendo 64, and you're like, oh man, they're gonna have all this power, and they're following up the Super Nintendo. That first Mario game is going to be like another Mario game, but with like really good graphics. And it's going to be a 2D game, and like it's going to be like a way better Donkey Kong Country. Like that's where our minds are at.
Exactly.
And then they come out with this fully realized 3D world, multiple 3D worlds. This game that just felt impossible. It's like there's no way that this is the launch game. There's no way that they could put this together so quickly. And that, even in hindsight, it's even more impressive because they made that game in like 18 months. It is.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, like a year and a half. Like I think maybe at most might have been like 20 months, but it was like definitely less than 2 years. So they were taking their old school 8-bit, 16-bit development cycle of putting a game together with a few people and then making enough art to make it work and applying that to a 3D game and then still making it feel as polished as a Nintendo game. The camera controls, I think for some people haven't aged too well, but at the time you didn't know any better, and it was so easy to fall in love with that game just because it was so impressive. Anytime, like there's so many people telling stories today about going to the store and playing one of those N64 kiosks and just being blown away. And I was definitely one of those kids. That was definitely happened to me at Toys R Us. It was just mind blowing. It's one of the biggest memories I have too, is the first time I played that game for sure.
Yeah, it really was mind blowing. It's funny you mentioned the kiosk. I think that's my first experience with the game, and because you're right, like we all expected it to be kind of that 2D side scroller because that's all we had. Like I think, like people, like for those who don't remember that, like that was such a groundbreaking, like just dramatic shift for the industry to go from 2D to 3D. Like it literally changed the way we experienced play games, the design of games. And Mario just came in there and just knocked it out of the park. And the one thing I'll say about Mario too, and please, anyone on the panel, please feel free to chime in. Just the level of consistency. I can't even talk tonight. The level of consistency with how the quality of these Mario games. I mean, it's just been like crazy. Like Jeff, I was before we went live. We were talking about my kids. My 7-year-old just got a Nintendo Switch Lite. And he's playing what was the Mario Worlds with Bowser's I forget what it's called. What's the game that just came out? Bowser's Fury. Thank you. And I'm watching my son play it, and he's having a blast. And I pick it up. He's like, "Dad, you want to play?" I'm like, "Yeah." And I'm playing. I'm like, "Damn, these games." I mean, 40 plus years, 38, whatever, 40 years, whatever later. I mean, these games are just amazing. Still, in my opinion, they are.
Yeah, I feel like I must be the oddball in the group. Was anybody's main moment with Mario?
Are you Sonic the Hedgehog guy? Is that what you're trying to tell
No. Well, eventually, actually, I did move over to.
What do you mean eventually? Sonic didn't get better eventually.
Right, eventually.
All right, let me explain myself.
Please.
Can you?
No, it was never really about Sonic. I was all into the sports games at that time. It was all me and my buddies being cool with sports with the Sega Genesis. But no, actually for me, like the biggest wow moment with Mario was the first Super Mario Brothers, and I remember like we walked into I don't know if you guys remember like Kmart like having the kiosks with Rob the Robot set up and the gun and all that stuff was all set up at Kmart. And like me and my brother, like the first time we walked by that, you would have thought like we just thought we were like in a sci-fi movie. We went from the last experience we ever had with gaming was Atari. And right up until our Atari joysticks broke, and then we didn't have any Atari because it was out of business for a while there. And so like going from Atari to that Super Mario was just probably like when I think of like my top 5 moments in gaming history, that was probably that's probably up there in the top 3. And yeah, just like and then just seeing like them exploring the secrets, like watching somebody in the store go through one of those pipes, and I was just like, holy smokes, like what's going on here? So that was it for me. And I will actually admit that we did have a Super Nintendo, but I was more of a sports guy at the time, and then I moved over to the PC Master Race, so that I ruined that jump to 3D Mario, like where everybody was engaged in that. I was like being a stuck-up PC guy back then, just like Enrique tries to act like now.
Whoa!
I was like, you don't really know
wait.
Enrique, PC Master Race.
Enrique lost that tag because he started promoting PlayStation more than PC, and he loves PC supposedly.
Well, no, that is true. He has moved back over to PC. No, but although I will say that it did change for Zelda. I did get suckered into paying. I remember when I saw Zelda in a magazine, like one of the screenshots, and like when
was
that
it Nintendo Power.
No, it wasn't. I did bring Nintendo Powers with me to junior high.
Game Pro, EGM.
I think it was one of those two. Yeah. I remember seeing that. That was another one of those moments in my history. I was like, holy shit, like, what is this? And so, yeah, when that came out day one, I don't know if they had pre-orders back then. I do remember I ran into a Funko Land, and the guy goes, well, we got one of these behind the counter. I'm like pulling out like my tip money from waiting tables, and they're like, so they came up with a price for me. I think I paid what would be equivalent to like a year's of Game Pass today for that game. But that was like, that was like those were like my wow moments. But for Mario, it's still the first one, and the second one for some reason still sticks out too. That was, remember we talked about the Cabbage Patch moment. That was that was another Cabbage Patch moment, and it was like really, really hard to get a Super Mario 2. So I felt like you won the lottery if you were one of the kids in school that got one of those.
I get what you're saying about the like Mario. If you were on PC at the time when Mario 64 came out, like you were getting stuff. Like it was right when like Quake was starting to come out and stuff. I get that, but it's like I think on the console and even like on PC, like you were still getting a lot of games like Grand Theft Auto 1 and 2, and then years later, like 2000 or 2001, Grand Theft Auto 3 finally comes out, finally takes the series 3D. And I think that's the timeline we were expecting from Nintendo as well. Like they'll eventually do like really complicated 3D games, but they're going to stick with 2D for a while. And so to come out the gate with this game that was like, it wasn't just like, a 3D shooter copying what had already been proven to work. It was taking a platforming game, making it 3D and making it feel as good as any of the 2D games. That was still really surprising. But yeah, I was one of those kids that played Super Mario Brothers as well after playing in television and ColecoVision mostly, and ColecoVision a little bit better than the Atari, but still not quite a Super Nintendo. And so to get the full smooth scrolling of a Super Mario Brothers, it was it was super impressive.
B Money, I know you've been gaming for a long time, man. What are your early memories of Mario?
Man, I've been playing since the beginning, but like for me, Super Mario 3 is probably my favorite and the one that sticks out the most. I think once I like got my hands on Super Mario 3 and played it for a good portion, like I knew I'd be a gamer for life. I think Super Mario 3 like changed everything for me. Like the jump from 1 to 2 was cool, but I really didn't like any of the boards and Super Mario 2. So when they transitioned to 3 and like the enemies were different, and you know what I mean, you finally got the leaf, so you got the raccoon tail. Yeah, you got the raccoon tail, and you're flying around. Like all of that stuff was like magical for me as a kid. You know what I mean? So Super Mario 3 is probably my favorite.
You know, it's funny when you bring up Super Mario 2, like thinking about that again. I wonder what it would have been like back then if they had social media, because I never learned that Super Mario 2 and Zelda 2 were bad games until like a few years ago. Really, I had no idea that those
Super
were
Mario
so
Brothers
bad.
2 is not a bad game.
Social media
says.
I loved it, man. And I loved Zelda too as well. I mean, we beat those. Well, back then you had to beat your games 100 times each, you know, because you didn't get them. You know, you didn't have Game Pass back then. So, but yeah, we loved both of those games.
Yeah, can I just real quick regarding the sale that Forte was talking about for Mario Day. This was in USA Today, by the way. Tons of Nintendo Switch games are on sale for up to 75% off for Mario Day 2021. This is in USA Today.
That never happens.
Is this a big news item because it just never happens? I mean, like this is USA Today that has an article on this, and there's actually quite a few games that are on sale right now that I actually probably need to at some point while I'm doing the show buy from probably Best Buy and have them delivered. Like Mario Rabbids Kingdoms Battle is $15.
Fantastic.
Yeah, it's a great game. Yeah. Mario and Sonic, the Olympic Games Tokyo is $30. Super Mario Party is $38.99. Luigi's Mansion 3, $38.99. Super Mario Odyssey, that's a really good one too. I like that game a lot. $39.99. Super Mario Brothers U Deluxe, $39.99. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe for $39.99. Those are some great deals. Some really, 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 really good games.
Mario Kart.
When the hell is Nintendo Switch going to get Nintendo Classics? Like all those games you just named, or at least most of them, should be Nintendo Classics right now.
It's not going to happen. It's Nintendo.
Why would it be a classic when people are willing to spend $60 for it?
I'm with you. I agree with you, but you know, they're going to put. We're getting the Zelda. I forget the Zelda game that's coming out.
Skyward Sword,
which actually was a good game, I thought, in my opinion.
Worst Zelda game ever. I thought it was a good game, though.
They're going to charge it. They're going to charge $60 for that. So.
And it's going to sell.
It's going to sell like hotcakes.
It is.
It's going to probably sell about. It's not going to sell Breath of the Wild. No, it's going to sell probably eight, between 7 and 8 million.
9, yeah, I agree with that. Yeah.
Jeff, why is it? Let me ask you something, Jeff. Your opinion. Why do you think Nintendo how can they do this? Like they do this. Like no one questions it really. At least I don't think they do. People just go out and like they will just spend like $60, and Nintendo never drops prices on the games except for today. Like they're like, I feel like Jeff, if Sony and Microsoft did this, people would be like, the pitchforks would be out, people would be screaming, shouting at the top of their lungs, anti-consumer chants, stuff like that.
Yeah. It's if this was an easily explained phenomenon, it would be in textbooks, and it would be taught in college courses, or it'd be like very expensive, they would be, people would charge a lot of money for that information. But the best way that I can explain it is that with Sony and Microsoft, we know these companies as consumer electronics companies. There's a lot of people that have a very deep relationship with them through their gaming consoles, absolutely. But Sony sells cameras, Sony sells TVs, Sony makes electronics, Microsoft makes software. They make the thing that they make Excel, like that people use every day in their jobs. When you go to Nintendo and they are just kind of making magic in the same way that Disney makes magic, people latch onto that in a way that goes beyond the way that they have a typical relationship with their products that they buy. You have this emotional connection with these characters and with these games and with these experiences. That's really what it is. It's these, Nintendo is selling experiences, Disney sells experiences, and when you finish that experience and you move on and it becomes like part of your memory, and these companies continue to foster these experiences and make new ones and make better versions of these experiences, it is something that you just cannot productize in a way, and it becomes this thing where people it becomes part of your personal history. It becomes part of who you are. And so these companies, because they are so important to us, and when we don't have this relationship to them in terms of like other products where like you don't think of Nintendo as a company that would sell you a camera or a TV, or like in Japan, like insurance or something like that, like Sony does. It just becomes like this magical sort of entity that exists elsewhere, and you forgive them because they have provided you with so much that is part of your memories, they just can get away with so much more. I really don't think that is a perfect explanation, but it's the best one I can do. And if I was better explaining, I would just go start a company and do what they do and make lots of money. But it does seem like it just comes down to us considering them sort of magical and otherworldly.
It's nostalgia. I mean, it's kind of like Disney, right?
Yeah, but I mean, like PlayStation has nostalgia now. I think that's a big part of what it is. But PlayStation doesn't, like, their games don't sell 30 million copies. Like it doesn't. Right. They don't get forgiven for. Yeah, I think they're gonna try to keep their game prices a little bit higher this generation. I get the hunch that they're going to try to pull that off. I will be surprised if it works as well as it does with Nintendo. But we'll see.
Yeah. I think I agree with you on the with the nostalgia with Sony. I think Sony's been around long enough that, and they put so many great first party games out that they kind of have that nostalgia factor now. But this is like, I'm literally actually like loading up my my shopping cart on BestBuy.com, dumping games into there because when are we going to get a sale like this again? I mean, Forte, you would probably say never, or maybe next year for Mario Day,
unless
right?
they release a Mario game then, and then they'll just be like, no, pay full price.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
I mean, it took them 4 years to drop the price of Breath of the Wild by $10.
Just $10.
That game released in, what was it? When did it switch? March of 2017?
Yep, 2017.
It literally took them 3.5. It took them just over 3.5 years to drop that price for the first time, which was this holiday. They dropped it right around Black Friday to $49.99 for the first time ever. Crazy.
Wow. That is crazy.
Question I have: before they stopped making Wii U's, did they ever drop the price?
No.
Okay, so it seems to me sales aren't the reason, their motivation for never dropping their price, because they never dropped the price of the Wii U, and that clearly wasn't a big system, that sold a lot.
Yeah, it's a philosophy. You're right.
Yeah, it's just how they are. We don't drop our prices for what? And it doesn't really seem like it's a sales thing. It's we feel our game is worth this. The quality is here. period. Like it could sell 5 copies, it could sell 5 million. It's going to be $60.
Slomo, you're saying that they're the crystal of gaming.
I mean, they think they are the crystal. I'm not throwing any shade at Nintendo. Their games no longer appeal to me, so it is what it is. But hey, look, if you are that confident in your product, hey, I like that. I like that confidence. That's good.
It's not like it's not selling. They are selling now. Like
exactly
at historic levels. You know, they have multiple games that are probably by the end of this generation, they're probably gonna have like 7-8 games that have sold 30 million copies.
Oh my god,
that's crazy. That's crazy.
Nothing even close to that. No other publishers doing those kinds of numbers with full priced retail games. Just that's they're another league.
Yeah, they really are. And Jeff, to your point, like you look at MPD. They're like 4 or 5 Nintendo games, like every month, like in the top 10 or something like that, like in MPD. And what's even more impressive is that they don't report digital sales. That's just physical copies sold. Yeah. Whereas the other publishers are combining digital and physical in their MPD numbers, and they're just blown out of the water. You're right. They're on another league. It blows my mind. I don't get it.
A lot of it comes down to like they're just very good at realizing more people want to play games than just the people that seem to have money at the moment. Like PlayStation's, its fate sort of rose when the kids that grew up playing PlayStation 2 got into a time in their life where they had extra spending money, where they had good paying jobs, and they don't have families for the most part, and they don't have a lot of other responsibilities, so they could spend a lot of money on PlayStation 4, and now that's continuing in PlayStation 5. Nintendo is just continually cultivating that next generation. They're continually fostering like families, but then they're also saying like there are older people in these families that maybe never were into Nintendo that could get into it now. And I think during the pandemic that paid off huge. Mario Party selling like 15 million copies or whatever it is. That like Mario Party, and that's just like families wanted to have something to do during the pandemic, and Nintendo was waiting for them right there, saying, "We're ready. We have all the stuff you want to like throw a fun little party with your family with some video games on your TV." And the other companies just aren't willing to invest in family gaming in that same way. And I don't blame them. It's tough. It's hard. Yeah. Nintendo's just better at that than other companies for sure.
Yeah, I always try to tell people. I said Nintendo, I think, is the one company that benefited the most from the pandemic, because I think games, as much as I talk about how much I love Animal Crossing wouldn't have sold as much as it sold. Yep. Because it happened. That game released 2 to 3 weeks after the shutdown started happening. People were wondering if they could even go to a store to even pick up the copy of the game that they pre-ordered. Mm-hmm. And that game kind of signified like the beginning of Nintendo shooting to the moon when it comes to just what people's expectation of what games was, because the Switch was in a perfect situation. It's a system that I always told people when it came out, I was like, so the first wave of this is going to be about people buying it because they're Nintendo fans. The second wave is going to be the people that's going to be coming and buying them for their kids. And then the third wave is going to be the ones that's going to be like, my kids don't want to share, I got to get another one. and that's exactly what happened. And then you start having games that come out for it, like Animal Crossing, that you can't share. Like, first of all, you can't share. You can only have one island per system and stuff. And people were buying multiple copies of the game. And it was just literally a perfect storm for Nintendo. I mean, as bad as that sounds, because of the way that the world went, video games thrived and Nintendo thrived the most.
Well, and it's also the nostalgia factor too, right? Like I don't know about you guys, but it feels to me like there's been an extra hunger for nostalgia these days. While everybody's kind of locked in their basements, and it's we're thinking about the things that made us feel good back in the day. And like Enrique, you brought it up earlier, and you said it's like, what do they have, or how do they keep doing it? And there's two things that was already mentioned. There's the consistency factor. People know what they're going to get pretty much every time they buy a Nintendo game. They have that expectation, and generally it's pretty well met. They do a very good job with that quality control. And then the other aspect is that I don't think any of the other brands in the world could ever replicate, is that nostalgia factor. I mean, like we just were telling our stories. Me, remembering standing at standing in a Kmart, looking at that kiosk, or looking in those magazines and seeing, Zelda for the first time. So those types of things, I think when you look across even what Sony and Microsoft have outside of Halo, I don't really see them having that same ability, even with the really high quality franchises that Sony has the last generation. They really haven't been like, those games have changed over time. They become something else. Like God of War doesn't really represent what it represented, for anybody who played it for the first time on the PS2. And so like a lot of these like more mature games that are trying to, chase the technology and blow us away, those generally just don't, I don't think they hold up as well over time. And they definitely don't play into the nostalgia as well either.
Yeah, and and that was a good transition, because I know we want to transition over to Microsoft stuff. But when you just bring up Microsoft and you talk about Halo, I think the biggest difference there, because you're right, that Halo is literally what Mario is. The biggest difference is Mario is that type of game, and Nintendo puts out those type of games that are more experiences that you can experience on your own, where Halo was a game that was experienced in like the single, like people played it because the single player was really good, but the game blew up because of the ability to be able to be social. It was the first time that people were able to say, I could just take a TV to someone else's house and have this big LAN party that only people that played on PCs really knew about, and it came to the console space. And it really started, it started Xbox Live, it started all that type of stuff. And the biggest difference that just came from all that is the fact that as of right now, that's why you see the Halo community being so, at odds with the way that the game is, compared to a game like Nintendo puts out. It's an experience that you can experience by yourself, where Halo is a game that you experience with other people. And that's why people are very, very hard on the way that Halo is versus how Nintendo games, it's like, well, you may not like it, but I love it because it's an experience that I grew up playing with, versus Halo was an experience I grew up playing with other people.
Yeah,
never thought about that until he said that.
Yeah, that's some great points. And I think also with Nintendo, I give the example of my kids playing, Bowser's Fury and Super Mario Odyssey when the Switch came out. It's really cool for me as a gamer to share those experience with my kids now. And so I think there's that kind of crossover there, right? That plays into kind of that nostalgia. But before we wrap up the Mario topic, Jeff, I want to ask you your top three Mario games of all time.
Oh man, okay. God, that's really tough. I really do love, I think, all the Mario games. I really do love them all. So this list will probably change all the time. So let me go. Right now, I definitely really still love Odyssey. I played that in 2017 when it came out. I replayed it at least once, and then I started replaying it again. I think they really did nail it, and I think it's exactly what I want from a Mario game. So that's in there. Then probably Super Mario World and Super Mario. I'm gonna say Super Mario 64. I'm gonna stand by my boy. I really do love Super Mario 64. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's a classic. Anyone on the panel want to give their top three real quick before we switch topics here?
Super Mario 3, Galaxy, and Paper Mario.
Good choice,
GameCube. Love Paper Mario.
I will say Mario RPG.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Mario 64 and the first Super Mario.
Yeah, I'm gonna
go. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was going to say Mario 1 through 3, and then I switched over to the Sega Genesis and PC Master Race. So,
oh my goodness!
So the only three that you actually,
the only three, yeah, exactly.
The only three that have the nostalgia, I'll say that.
Yeah. All right. I'm going to go with Super Mario Sunshine, Odyssey, and Super Mario 64. Those are my top three. But all of them are great. So yeah. So look, it's been kind of a slow news week, right?
Yeah, it sure has.
Yeah. not a lot going on. I think Jeff, it's been slow for you guys there in the on the media side of things, right?
A lot of quoting of other websites and stuff out here this week.
There might be some things we can talk about.
Yeah, there's at least a couple big stories, but yeah, you're right. I haven't been writing nonstop. That's for sure.
We got tweets of companies joining other companies, man. I don't know what companies they are, but that one company tweeted animation of them of their favorite achievement pop and saying we joined someone else. It was quiet out here.
That actually was a cool achievement.
That was actually a really cool
Yeah.
achievement. I saw that. I was like, "What's this?" And I was like, "Oh, look at Bethesda. Look at that."
That was really cool. So, I have a soft spot for Bethesda. One, because I've been a fan of many of Bethesda's games for going back to the OG Xbox. I even tweeted out. I still have the Morrowind strategy guide that came out with that game when you got the Xbox. I remember at the time it was like the most expensive, like the most I've ever paid for a strategy guide. It was like $20. And when did that game come out? Like 2003, I think. I don't remember now. I think it was 2003 or 4. I think it was 2003 when Morrowind came out. I have to look that up. I don't remember. But I just remember like looking at that strategy guide, and the thing's like it's like a Bible. It's like really thick. And that thing, I have moved many a times, and that thing has survived the test of time. It still looks brand new. Like I don't even know what kind of paper it's made of, but it's like it looks. Yeah, the guy still looks new. But I've been a big fan, and they also. Bethesda also sits in my backyard. And actually, say not just my backyard, but also Slow-Mo's here in the DMV, and so it's cool. Like I don't think there's a lot of Slow-Mo's. There cool things in Maryland, really. I mean, I don't know, crab cakes. We
got cool stuff out here, man.
I mean, Washington D.C.'s down the street, but
there's the Eastern Shore. I mean.
The sports teams are better than ours.
I mean, you could go all the way over there to the dirty beach water. I don't know. There's not much going on.
Ocean City isn't that bad.
You gotta go to DC for everything if you want to, hit up, clubs, bars, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, you gotta go to DC. Honestly,
but no, I mean, it's cool. That, I guess my point, we don't have many big companies. If we do have big companies, they are in hospitality, like Marriott's headquartered here, Choice Hotels, and then of course we have the big government contractors, the war machines as I call them. Lockheed's here, and Baltimore. I don't know what's in Baltimore, man. Like, I don't know, the Orioles maybe.
The harbor's pretty nice.
The Ravens, the harbor's the harbor's kind of cool. But anyhow, I digress. But Bethesda's here. In Maryland, it's kind of and their name is derived from a city in Montgomery County or in Maryland called Bethesda. But yeah, so it's really cool that they're here. They're involved in the gaming industry. I don't know if you know this, Slow-Mo, but there's actually a lot of mobile developers up outside Baltimore. I don't know if you knew that over in like the Timonian area. I found that.
Know that no.
Yeah. There's a lot of mobile devs up there, and actually Zenimax Online is actually headquartered up there as well. All right, so big news coming out of Microsoft. It's official. Of course, we knew about this acquisition or the attempted acquisition of Bethesda or Zenimax Media by Microsoft for a resounding $7.5 billion with a B dollars. It's a lot of money. Maybe not a lot of money for Microsoft, though, but nevertheless, a lot of money. And, they have the deal is official now. Phil Spencer, they put out a press release with Phil Spencer, head of Xbox, yesterday, and he talked about welcoming Zenimax Media to Xbox diverse portfolio of Game Pass. Which, look, this is a huge acquisition from Microsoft, a big boom for Game Pass. I mean, we know about the need to really provide content to kind of, I call Game Pass the beast, to feed the beast, and to really keep people engaged, I think, in Game Pass. And while many of us weren't really surprised by this announcement, there's been this long debate amongst the gaming community. I think
a bunch of crying.
Well, yeah,
that's what it's been.
But Jeff, I think you've seen a lot of the back and forth on the Twitters. With, our game's going to be exclusive. What's going to happen? And I don't think Microsoft really.
Hey, Jeff, have you ever thought about why somebody would spend $7.5 billion? I mean, how many times have we heard that phrase?
Yeah, exactly.
Yes, and no matter what side of the fence you fall on there, that factoid is always in your favor. They're like, oh, you spent $7.5 billion, so you have to make that money back, so you have to sell it on everything. Or you spent $7.5 billion, why would you do that if you weren't going to make it exclusive? It fits everyone's narrative. I think that I actually think that Phil Spencer did a pretty good job of explaining their thinking for the most part, as best as he could at this point. Like, the deal did just close. They probably haven't made any final decisions about anything, really. They're probably really starting those conversations now and saying what's going to be best for everyone going forward. And then, they said some games will be exclusive. I mean, I think that is part of an answer right there. Some games are going to come out and they are going to be exclusive to Xbox and PC and Game Pass, basically. And so, we know that's going to happen. Now, we don't know what game that's going to apply to. Is it going to be some experimental weird thing that they're just going to throw on Game Pass and not even try to release anywhere else because they don't think it's going to do anything? Or is it going to be Starfield? We still don't have the answer to that question necessarily, but I think that my take on this would be, this is them preparing us for something like Starfield maybe going exclusive, or maybe like the next Elder Scrolls, something down the line. And then if they decide to go ahead and release those games elsewhere, they can be like, well, we always said that it was going to be, case by case basis. We always said it was going to be some games are going to be exclusive. I think they worded it in such a way that they can still go any which way they want, and I think that is actually their desire, to treat each project as an individual project and say what is going to be best for this game, and then what is best for this game in context of what will it, what will be its best return on the investment that we're putting into it in terms of contributing to Xbox and Game Pass and all this other stuff. So, it feels just like we're still kind of stuck in that conversation, right? We still don't know. We're still kind of going back and forth about all the ways that this could be good or bad, all the ways that this could benefit them. But I honestly, I am almost kind of just tired of this conversation overall. I'm like, let's just kind of see what's going to happen. I think we'll find out we'll find out pretty soon. I think by E3 we'll have some idea what's going to happen with like Starfield, for example. But we'll just have to wait and see. Really,
I really like the word you just used, how this could be good or bad, and that right there is the one thing that's been driving me nuts over the last couple of days. I'm like, how could this be bad? Like, no matter what, if you're on Xbox, no matter what, you're getting these games. You're getting them in a subscription service where you're already embedded. So you're getting them no matter what. And if you're on PlayStation, it's not bad. I mean, it's not bad, because most of the PlayStation people I know, they talk about, I have a PC and that's why they can play all these games anyway. So the ones that I hear talking the loudest, because let's be for real, the ones that truly care about this, they're the ones that they'll just come over to Game Pass and get the game. It's everybody else that has this false narrative where they feel like they have to defend something. And I think another thing is just the simple fact that some people just need to kind of get out their own way when it comes to this conversation, because there's a difference in saying that you want them to do something versus what they're actually going to do. Yeah. I can literally sit here and I've been me, Slow-Mo, BRAP, we all had different opinions on this. I've been telling people for the last 6 months that these games should be exclusive, and they should be exclusive for the fact of the matter that, hey, if you want to build the platform of Game Pass, that's going to be the best way to do it. It's not because I want the games to be exclusive. I just feel like that's the direction you go in. That's completely different. Now, if they come out and say half the games in Bethesda are going to be on both platforms, it's going to be PlayStation 5, PlayStation 4, the next Elder Scrolls is going to come to PlayStation 5. Okay, because I'm still going to play the games wherever I want to play them at. But that's the difference in like the conversation I've been hearing, because like, Lord have mercy, I'm so tired. It's like, I thought when the systems released, the conversation would stop being about tech and hardware, That didn't change. I thought once we started getting games, people would start actually playing those games. But no, not all they do is tear down the games and say, well, this game has this problem and this game has that instead of just enjoying the games. Now we finally hear about the acquisition going through. And I told people, I was like, listen, they ain't gonna tell you anything about this acquisition and when it comes to where these games are going to go. That's going to be something that they're literally going to, test and see exactly what happens. And I think Phil Spencer did an amazing job in saying what he needed. He basically said everything he needed to say without giving people the one thing that they truly, truly wanted to know about. And all that's going to do is just keep Xbox and Microsoft in the forefront of what everybody's thinking about. Because guess what? PlayStation got a bunch of games coming out this year. But what are we talking about right now? We're talking about games that we don't even know when the hell they're going to release. We don't know when Starfield's coming. We don't know about the next Elder Scrolls. We're talking about things that are just theories that could happen versus the things that are literally right around the corner. And I think that's where Xbox is kind of winning that mind share of what's going on. But ultimately, we're going to find out what's going on in this situation. Hopefully it's Thursday because Jeff Grubb has some really good information around that. So hopefully it's tomorrow and we get some type of information around that. But honestly, it just comes back to me personally. I want them to be exclusive, but if they're not, I'm okay with that because guess what? I got a PlayStation and an Xbox. And if I didn't have a PlayStation, I can still play them on my Xbox.
Well, yeah. I think you bring up some good points there, but Forte, but I think that's also, and Jeff, you said that, they're trying to keep the door open and I totally understand that. But, unfortunately, I think part of the reason that you see a lot of this frustration and from the reaction, it's because it doesn't really exist in the vacuum. And I don't think it's necessarily, personally, I don't care either way. It just doesn't matter to me anymore. But right. But I do understand like some of the frustration, and the reason is like you got to remember they're coming off this generation where hey, we're gonna DRM. No, we're not. And okay, every Connect is going to be bundled so we can really capitalize on it and make sure developers use it. Okay, no, it's not. And okay, here's some games at E3, but okay, we're going to release some of those games. We're going to do VR, and okay, now maybe someday we'll do VR. And so like over this generation, Microsoft has had like a messaging problem and a trust problem, even with their most loyal fans. And the reason why I feel like Jim Ryan, even though he's kind of changed his mind, and yeah, there's been some backlash, but people go right back they've built up more of that trust equity with some of their messaging over time. And I think that's even though in this particular situation, I understand why it makes sense for Microsoft to give themselves options. They are going to have to like navigate this period where they're trying to also rebuild trust. And like for example, I'm unfortunately a lifelong Lions fan, right? Like we just changed over our DMs.
Same.
Yeah, and and like logically, I should be giving this GM every chance. He's made a few good moves right out the gate.
Great trade, by the way. Super Bowl 3 years. I'm calling it right now.
No, but see, that's the thing. I cannot see that.
Wait, for the Rams? I think the Rams go to the Super Bowl in the next 3 years.
No, I'm talking about the Lions. They got it.
It's never happening. No, the Lions. I'm telling you right now, I'm
conditioned before it happens.
That's never gonna happen here, bro.
Jeff understands. Like when you grow up a Lions fan, you expect them to blow every game that they're winning against a good team. You know they're not going to win a playoff game. They're going to find a way. And I think that's just it's not logic. Yeah, it's not logical. You got a different person in charge, and it's the same thing with Xbox. Like the Xbox is not the same Xbox they were in 2017. Completely different. Like they changed over almost all of the leadership, or they brought in people, and it's a different strategy. It's a different paradigm they're going into. But as customers, we're emotional people, right? Like we people like treat, and I always say we shouldn't be treating corporations like people, but they do. They treat them like this relationship we've had over time. time, and they expect certain things, and then when they feel betrayed or like they don't trust you, that's the way that people. Yeah,
that's the crazy word that you just used, betrayed.
It's not.
I didn't mean to laugh. I did. I don't.
No, it's crazy.
I've seen it. I just
and I'm with them. But
you've seen it on Twitter.
But this is the thing.
How dare Coca-Cola pull out new Coke? They betrayed
me.
Well, it's crazy.
Even the exclusive argument, it does not. Like, I'm getting the stuff on Game Pass. You know, like if I'm an Xbox customer, I know I'm getting all the games. I know where I'm going to find them. Logically, it's almost like this loyalty thing. Like they have to earn that back, and it's a weird thing. And I think, you know, I maybe in a few years we'll be past this, because, you know, I think people are going to start to realize. You don't think so?
Because the companies have to foster it, right? They you know, they live on this stuff because it really gets people to spend more money. I mean, honestly,
yeah.
So they're not going to fight it, and if the companies aren't going to like try to disincentivize people behaving this way, it won't ever really go away. Companies want people to identify with them on an emotional level. It is good business. Yep. And you know, there's multiple ways to you know, to build that up. There's multiple ways to create that. And all these companies are going to continue pursuing any one of those ways that's going to work for them. I think with Microsoft, it is like the Netflix of games idea. A lot of people, you know, they might not realize it, but I think a lot of people are building sort of that relationship with Netflix itself, where they think about Netflix as like this, as where they get almost all of their entertainment. And if something's not on Netflix, they feel like, why are you even trying to do this Paramount Plus bullshit? What is this thing? Just sell your stuff on Netflix. Like, and so it's like, you know, Netflix becomes this default in their mind, and then and that sort of happens with gaming as well. We spend a lot of money on these consoles. Everyone knows this story, right? Where, you know, people, they want to feel like they made the right choice. The way I explain it is I really like MCU movies, and I used to really like DC, like when I was growing up, but when I started getting into MCU, it's like the more DC stuff started coming out, I started being like immediately skeptical. And I'm like, why am I being this way? I like Superman, I like this character, I like Batman. What's my problem? And I realized I just didn't want to spend the mental time, and the monetary investment to get into yet another huge superhero universe. It was like this thing where I'm like, I'm just going to pretend that I don't even like this thing. I'm going to pretend this thing actually is like an embarrassment, because it's a defense mechanism to save me money, and so people are going to continue being that way because it's a defense mechanism. We want everything to be right there in front of us on the system we bought. It's you know, more affordable, and if we're going to be irrational about it, who cares? It's our money. We're allowed to be irrational. I think, you know, getting back to like the core of like what this Bethesda deal means, in terms of exclusivity, I'm less interested in that just because of what Forte was saying. Like, I own an Xbox, so it's like, I'm gonna be fine. But I think if you don't own an Xbox, you're probably fine as well, right? Like, just get Game Pass and stream it. Honestly, that's gonna get simpler and simpler over the next year. It's gonna be built into your TV, or it's gonna be very easy to like stream your phone to your TV and just play everything wirelessly. It's not ideal, but like $15 a month to play like the next big release, if that's the way you have to do it, if you really are against buying a console, at least the option is available to you. So I don't think this is going to be that big of a problem for PlayStation gamers as they are portraying it. I get why you want, like, a lot of people we're hearing from are the PlayStation diehards, who are sort of the console warriors who are fighting people online, and that's what this is really all about. But when it really comes down to actually playing the video games, they're going to get over it. Everyone's going to get over it, and they'll play it wherever they can if it's a game they want to play, and if they have to, they'll just ignore it, and we'll just move on. But I think this is a good move for Microsoft overall. I think it's pretty exciting to see them like making sure that Bethesda could continue, like they said in the blog post, right? We want to make sure Bethesda can operate the way it always has. That is the key for me. Like, Bethesda's a big company, makes a lot of good games, but they weren't always selling the best. If Microsoft is just there to be, you know, Daddy Warbucks, to pay for them to make games like they always did, to me, that's a win for everybody. You know, consolidation, whatever. I get it, but I'm glad that these people still have jobs and can still keep making games.
That's a great point, Jeff. Yeah,
so Arcane doesn't go under or have to make games,
exactly. Which was at risk. Absolutely, that was a risk to really happen, and that would have been a shame.
It would have, and those games, Arcane. I think I've said this, you know, before we went live, Jeff. You know, that's, you know, Dishonored. I mean, there's talented studio, but that's not a game that sold well, and maybe, and I'm thinking maybe Game Pass potentially is a good place for them to be. Like I use Arcane as an example, right? Where maybe a game like Dishonored gets played now by more people because it's on Game Pass, right? Maybe more people are willing to try because actually it really is a good game, and maybe that's a win, And I don't think it's a bad thing necessarily to give a developer the opportunity to have their game exposed to more people that maybe wouldn't have had their eyes on that game if it wasn't in a service like this. All right, we'll get the super chat real quick, guys. Viper XT with the $5 super chat says, this was the best marketing move. Anyone waiting to see a Bethesda games will come to PS5. We'll keep talking about each game, wondering. I saw a lot of people talking about that on the Twitters today. It's kind of that mind share. I think that either Forte or some bad mother brought up. But I will say this, and please, everyone chime in. But I'll say this real quick. I think either way, I think you're right, Jeff. I think some games are going to be exclusives, others are not. Maybe it's going to be it sounds like a case by case type situation. But either way, I look at this. Either way, even if Microsoft didn't, make some games exclusive, it's because people say it's got to be exclusive to be a win, and I don't necessarily agree with that. I think even if the games, let's say, did go multi-plat, it's still a win because you could say, hey, you know what? You could play Elder Scrolls on PlayStation 5, but it's going to cost you $70. Or for the price of 2 games for a year, you can get the new Elder Scrolls and 300 other games and all our first-party stuff. So it's kind of like there's still value in that, right? $70 for one game versus, what is it, $160 or whatever the case is for Game Pass for a year plus 300 games. It's still a win-win, in my opinion, for Microsoft. But
yeah, I think go ahead.
No, I was going to say just like you were just saying, Jeff. Or the other option is they just turn on the TV, pull up the Game Pass app, and they actually could use their DualShock controller with that. So like that.
If the PlayStation 5 gets a browser and it's like Chromium based or whatever, which is like I mean, you could maybe just play it on the PS5 streaming over the browser, right? That's possible.
Well, and that's the thing that I keep going back. And I was like, maybe they're not saying exactly and they're being cagey with the response on some, and case by case is the fact that you can pretty much ask any Xbox gamer out there and say, if we already know that Xbox wants to have Game Pass everywhere. So in my mind, I'm thinking like, why if they wanted to have it everywhere, they want to have it on Switch, they want to have it on PlayStation. And if they can do something like that and those games be over there, now people keep coming back with the counteract saying, well, Game Pass has third-party games in it. Well, Game Pass doesn't have to exist the same way as it exists on Xbox, like it exists on another platform like PlayStation. Just like it doesn't exist the same way between PC and Xbox. They're drastically different in what they offer. They have a bunch of games that are the same, but for the most part, there's like 3 times the amount of games on the Xbox version of Game Pass than it is on PC. So let's say Xbox finally does broker and say, maybe Sony doesn't want to sell full price games on their system for Xbox. Maybe they would be maybe they would allow Xbox to have a subscription service where just their games are in it and people get access to those games. That could literally be a bridge point right there that definitely could happen, because guess what? I brung it up on Crossfire last week. I was like, PlayStation was highly against the Play Together update for Minecraft. And the reason they were against it so hard is because they did not want a launcher for Xbox Live on their server. They didn't want people to have to be able to log in, and just because everything was shared. Once the Play Together update came out and everybody had crossplay involved, you had to be able to log into an Xbox Live server. That's why it was only available on PlayStation, mobile phone, PC, not PlayStation, Nintendo, Switch, Xbox, and PC and mobile phone. And then the PlayStation version was just basic Minecraft, the same game without the update. And what happened a year later? They finally caved and all of a sudden you see, Play Together update now available. Now you can play with PlayStation people. So it only takes time for stuff like this to happen. Jim Ryan is a person that, he's a financial, he was the CFO of the company before he decided to move over and be where his position is now. And things change, and sooner or later, if it makes sense, and they say, well, we can have, you know, games like Halo, maybe because they don't make first party shooting games over there. You know, Killzone, we don't know what's going to happen with that. But if they can say they can have something like Halo in a Game Pass, that would still bring people to wanting to play on their system. They can still play their first party Sony games over there, but then they could say, well, Xbox has the ability to have this streaming service or not, or just the Game Pass app over there to do it too. So there's a bunch of ways this can happen, and I don't think we are anywhere near seeing the final form of what all these games are going to be later on, because sooner or later Xbox is going to have an app on your TV and you're just going to be able to stream this stuff, and I guarantee you that's going to be the first step you're going to see. Then you're going to see it migrate to other platforms like Nintendo, PlayStation, and anywhere else they can definitely get this system or the service.
Yeah, if Microsoft came out and said, hey, listen, if you're an Xbox subscriber or Xbox Game Pass subscriber, and we are going to do a version of on PlayStation that you just get automatically, but it only has Xbox games. First, who would be mad about that? And what would be Sony's argument against that? They already allow EA Play on there. Like, what would be the argument? Why would Sony say no to that? And I guess it would just be like they would be afraid of letting Microsoft build more momentum. But then it's just like this defensive position. If there's no like, oh, like you're taking the sales away from us, it's like, no, it's just the same thing. And, you know, we'll sell our games full price on your system as well. But then we're also going to let people have the Xbox Game Pass option with just Microsoft games. I think that's within 10 years, I like have no idea how this stuff's going to play out. It feels like we say right now that seems impossible. It seems crazy. That could never happen. But within 10 years, I honestly don't know. I think Game Pass on PlayStation is not completely outside the realm of possibility in that amount of time.
Wow.
Well, Grubb, you actually bring up that's like a really interesting thing to think about. But now the one thing I would ask about that is you know, with the way the industry is kind of trending, I would have to think that Sony's kind of also looking at their own subscription, their own cloud someday, because obviously, you know, you look at the markets, and I know Slow-Mo, you've shown that graph, you know, where consoles have been stagnant for a while, but everything else is like blowing up, right? And so then you kind of look at that and you're like, so really it feels like it's going towards the subscription war, just kind of like how music went towards it, TV went towards it. That feels like the next kind of battleground for gaming. And maybe I'm wrong, and I want to kind of hear what your thoughts on that is, but that might be why they don't allow it, is they just don't want them to get that momentum before they get their ducks in a row, you know?
And that's the last thing, like what you just said. This isn't just an Xbox and Microsoft decision. Sony has to sign off on this. They have to want those games, or they will have to want that service. Maybe PlayStation doesn't want to give 70% of the revenue to Microsoft because, like Jeff Grubb just said, no matter what they do, all they're doing is feeding a funnel that Microsoft is going to have anyway. They're either going to get it through a subscription service, or they're going to get it through selling full price games over there. So they're looking like, well, maybe we don't want them over here. And they run the risk of alienating some of their fans, because trust me, they have done it before when they said things like, we don't need EA access on our platform. And it didn't hurt them as much because, I mean, EA is not as big of a brand as something like Bethesda. I mean, you know, some people probably left over and said, well, I'm going to go over there because I could get, you know, demos earlier and stuff like that. So it just really just comes down to the fact that Sony doesn't have to do this, but how detrimental would it be to them on the bottom line if they didn't do something like that, if Xbox did decide to go full price games or subscription service over there?
Yeah, let me get the super chat real quick from Bernard Miller. $2 super chat. Thank you, Bernard. Says, why doesn't PS5 have a browser? It actually does, as B Money said. It's just hidden. B, thank you for the clarification, sir.
There's a lot of things that's hitting on the PlayStation 5 that was on PS4.
Is it a full-featured browser?
Yeah, it is.
Okay, huh?
So why?
Okay, I was gonna say like, the conspiracy theorist in me is just like, they don't want to surface it because maybe then someone can figure out how to stream games to it from another service. But
that could be it.
No, it's just like the PlayStation 5 is underbaked, like everything was. They rushed it out, whatever. Yeah. They're still updating it. They don't even have SSD expansion, so of course the browser's not there. But if it's there and they're just hiding it, let's just be a conspiracy theorist. They don't want people streaming games on it. I bet that the browser, I bet streaming streaming games on that browser would be pretty difficult and pretty suboptimal. So it's probably not the reason. But I'm just, who cares? Whatever. It's a podcast. No one listens when we're talking, right? I can say whatever.
Hey, but we're gonna get an article tomorrow, Jeff. Yes. Jeff Grubb says, Sony doesn't want you streaming on their web browser, hence it's hidden.
You absolutely know better than that. You know, there's people waiting for a news article right now.
Yep. Oh yeah. I
know. You got to give them something.
There's going to be headlines tomorrow, especially with I think Jeff, you had mentioned something because I think someone in the live chat mentioned something about tomorrow, or maybe was that you?
That was me. I said, shout out to Jeff Grubb and his article that he talked about. He let loose. We're gonna probably hear about. And who knows?
Is there some kind of video event tomorrow, Jeff? Is that what it was?
I think there should be some. So they said they were going to talk later this week about like the games coming to Game Pass. I think that will come tomorrow. I do believe it. It should be in video form because Microsoft was in Maryland Bethesda recording video interviews specifically for this, and then it was on their schedule for this Thursday, tomorrow now. I think that the blog post was I think the blog post was always supposed to kind of sort of lead into that, where they can talk about something like exclusivity in the blog post so that they don't have to bring it up in these videos. So when the videos come out and they don't even mention the word exclusivity, it's not like that doesn't become the whole conversation. They've already answered that question, so now they could talk about what's on Game Pass, and they could talk about like what the sort of what the relationships between the two companies is going to be going forward. They might address the idea like, when we go into something like E3 and we get into the summer, is there going to be one big event with all Bethesda's games and all the Xbox games? Probably not. That's a bit too soon. There's going to be an Xbox event and a Bethesda event, and that's definitely the case. Like that's definitely how it's going to go down. And they might talk about that tomorrow. So it's going to be stuff like that. There's not going to be talk about Starfield or anything. Yeah. But I do think we'll hear a little bit more. This is when we'll hear about what's coming to Game Pass. So I'm excited for that. If nothing else.
Yeah, me too. I mean, they're probably, I'm imagining, turn on the switch pretty quick and get a lot of these games into Game Pass, like we just talked about, Dishonored 2, the Wolfenstein or Steam, what else? Evil Within. I'm trying to think of all the games they've come out with.
Yeah,
Doom's already in there, but
the funny thing is, I think it's going to be more of what's going to happen on the PC side of it. I think because a lot of those Bethesda games had already been in Game Pass on Xbox. Now, it's not saying they won't bring them back, but the PC side of Game Pass, outside of Doom and a couple of other games, I can see them really fostering that a lot and talking about the stuff that's going to come to that side of the platform more than anything. Because let's be
Fallout 4 at 60 frames per second, right? They don't have to ask, they don't have to ask permission anymore, right? Like we're like, we're going to ask every developer if we can do this. Well, they own it now. They could just
own it.
So,
my goodness.
Also on PC, they do have their own launcher. So I wonder how they're going to handle that.
Yes, they'll talk about Bethesda.net, I think, if not here soon.
Yeah.
I don't think that's going away, Slow-Mo, by the way.
It shouldn't go away the way their store is.
You're talking about Microsoft Store.
You're not wrong. I always thought that this acquisition would be CD Projekt Red, because CD Projekt Red has GOG, right?
Has GOG.
And so I'm like, it makes sense. You get these big games, but then you also get this PC distribution store that people use and pretty much like.
Yes,
but Bethesda.net, honestly, it solves all those problems, and you get even more games. And Bethesda's had its problems with like Fallout 76 launches and stuff like that. It hasn't been quite as drastic as CD Projekt Red's recent release. So maybe this was the better deal in the end. And I think, Bethesda.net, if they turn that into like really their Steam and put all their games through that instead of the Windows Store, sweet Jesus, that would be awesome.
That would be great. Yes, it would solve a lot of issues on PC.
Slow-Mo's been very vocal about the Microsoft storefront.
Not wrong.
Anytime your own first-party games play better and are more stable on Steam than your own store, you need to look in the mirror and say, what are we doing here?
I mean, you're not lying, Slow-Mo. I mean, Halo, God, what is it, Master Chief Collection?
Yeah, Master Chief Collection. Every single release of the Master Chief Collection on Steam, people are like, I got no problems, ran great. All the bugs and issues are coming from the version people are getting from the Microsoft store.
I couldn't even get it to launch from Game Pass from on my PC. I'm like, what is going on here? Maddening. And I went and I got it for Steam. No issues. No issues.
and that seems like the sleeper subject matter, like out of this whole entire acquisition is like what this is going to do for the PC side of things. You just mentioned, it feels like the writing's on the wall from
best place to play games.
Well, you know what? If they move over everything from their current store over to,
we have all the exclusives now.
Yeah, and now you're bringing in the Zenimax games, which are actually popular on PC because it really is one of those. There's a much bigger audience.
Well, that's where most of the games sold at. That shout out to Gaming Ad. He was talking about that on the Addict Show the other day.
Huge opportunity.
It's like people don't realize that Bethesda sells most of their games on PC. It sells more on PC than console. So that's why I think they're going to really foster that PC side of it. And that's why Xbox has always talked about how Bethesda, like all those games are. It was never a thought that those games weren't going to be on PC. That's why they always talked about it from the beginning, that these games are going to be on Xbox Game Pass, Xbox, and PC, because that's where they're going to make probably the bulk of their money when it comes to full price sales on PC. So they're going to do pretty much as they probably can do. I would think that the launcher for Game Pass is going to be full with Bethesda games coming up in the next couple of weeks or so. And I didn't even think about the Bethesda.net part of the acquisition. That could literally become the new launcher for Xbox after some time.
Yeah, I think they'll just keep both, right? They'll have the Xbox Game Pass, and that'll be like where the UWP versions of the game live, and then Win32 versions of the game, which they're already containerizing those games and putting them on Steam. You just now also put them on Bethesda.net, and you sign in with your Microsoft account. And if you have Game Pass, you could just download the Win32 version if you want instead, and it should work like it works on Steam, ideally. And that'd be fantastic.
Yeah. Well, let me grab the super chat real quick, gentlemen. We have. Miko19 with the $5 super chat. Thank you, Miko. Says, to me, exclusivity comes down to shareholders. They like money, and if at some point they see that Xbox and PC isn't generating enough, PlayStation will get more games.
I don't know about that.
That just goes back to the same thing. When it comes to Bethesda games, they sell more on PC anyway.
There's different ways to make money though. Like the thing is, like, people. Satya Nadella was one of his mentors was Reed Hastings, the guy that co-founded Netflix, and like he was there, going to those meetings back when they were still like underwater and losing more than they were making, and so I think he knows what he's getting into. And Netflix last year I think invested $17 billion into content, something crazy like that, and all they deliver is one particular product. They don't have ability to sell microtransactions and toys and all this other stuff. So I really think just the way that Microsoft reorganized and kind of put gaming up to the front of the table and everything. I really do believe when he says Netflix of games, he means Netflix of games.
Yes,
and I do think he really believes that. You even look at the pay structure this year. Like his compensation says when it includes gaming, it's Netflix subscriptions. It doesn't say anything about revenue or income for gaming. It's just subscriptions. And those are the types of things that, as an investor, if you think about something that's going to drive the stock price, it's going to be those types of things that are, that tells you what their strategies are and where their priorities are, or what they're going to look at for their goals at the end of the year. So I really do believe it's all about Game Pass. And maybe that's why you just continue to ignore PlayStation. But I mean, if they could have their cake and eat it too, then why wouldn't they? But at the end of the day, I do think Game Pass does go to the forefront over everything. I mean, I don't think it's a coincidence that in the article they'll mention it. They'll say Game Pass 7 times, and they mention exclusivity once. That's really everything they're driving right now.
Well, and if the games aren't on PlayStation, I think it encourages more people to get Game Pass. It really
does.
I think that, we've seen this with Steam, right? And Epic Games. Like Epic has to give away so much free stuff, and they have to do all kinds of huge promotions to get they give away a $10 coupon every month to get people to come to Epic. People are just going to keep buying the games on Steam. Microsoft has Game Pass on PC, and people still want to just buy those games on Steam. People just want to do what they've done They're building up a library, and that's a huge mental hurdle to just like let go of this library that you have all nice and collected on one system and say, okay, well now I'm going to start a library on another system, or even like subscribe to a library on another system. It's still a pretty big mental hurdle. If you can only get these games that are in many cases very desirable games, like an Elder Scrolls 6 and potentially like a Starfield, and you can only get them on Game Pass, more people will get Game Pass. It's just Netflix doesn't put their stuff out elsewhere except for in very rare cases where like they'll release a Blu-ray of a show that's very, very, very popular. And otherwise, you just got to go to Netflix to get that stuff, and that's the idea.
Yeah, that's a great point, Jeff. So you mentioned Starfield. Do you think that we will see? Because there's rumors out there that Starfield's going to come out later this year. It's further along development than most people realize. Do you think we're going to get a Starfield, like E3 announcement? Can you see that happening?
I'm pretty confident about that. No guarantees. This is not something to go write a news story about, but put that disclaimer everywhere. But I would put myself at about 85% that we'll see it at E3. So
Jeff, 85% someone writes a story now. By the way,
I know. I put a number on it. I mean, you're not wrong. It's going to happen no matter what. But 85% we're going to see it at E3. I think that it's pretty close to ready. I think those screenshots that people are saying are leaking out, that they're popping up here and there, I think that stuff is indicative of where that game is at. And I think it's probably going to follow the Fallout 4 model, where we'll see it at E3. It'll be out later this year. And I will say that if you want to write a news story about this, go ahead. I will say that Microsoft should be very happy that they closed this deal, because they're going to need something like Starfield, because they are. While they are building up and having a lot of studios, those studios are still taking their time, and they're probably not going to have a lot of other stuff going this year. I know Jason Ronald teased that game, and I think if people thought about it hard enough and they know what Jason Ronald's into, they'll be able to figure out what game that is. But, but they're not going to have much else other than that. So if they can get Starfield out this year, that'll pretty much save their caboose. Yeah. And another reason to make it exclusive, maybe, because they might just need that for the conversation. And at that point, maybe just make it timed exclusive, right? That's always an option. There's a million options here. It's one of the things we talk about, exclusivity for how long there. And we didn't even mention all the ways these things could be exclusive. They could just keep it there for a year, and that would kind of make a big difference. So
there's a lot of precedent for them doing that and showing the game for the first time at E3 and then releasing it later this year. They did it with Fallout 76. They did it with Fallout 4.
And it worked really good in Fallout 4's case. Fallout 76 had its own issues, but if that game was good, it probably would have done just as well there too.
Right. So they have especially for Bethesda Game Studios, they have a history of keeping everything close to the vest, not showing you anything. For a lot of these games, we see a teaser trailer like 2-3 years before the game comes out. And then we see, more and more trailers showing more information as time goes on. They do things a little bit differently. So, it would make total sense that game's coming out this year, especially considering this should be about, for that team, like 3-4 years in development on it. So, it just makes total sense.
So I agree. You think about the fact that we actually saw Cyberpunk before we ever saw Fallout 4. And what did it release, like 5 years after that? So
it just comes to me for the fact that every time, and I realized this probably 4 months ago, every time Xbox or Phil Spencer comes out and talks about Bethesda, it's never about any other game. It's always Bethesda proper, and it's Starfield. Starfield was always mentioned as something that was alongside Bethesda. And it just got to a point where I'm like, they're talking about this game way too much. Like they're talking about it like it's literally, they're just trying to keep it in people's in their mind that this game is a game that we actually have in our, under our publication now. And I'm like, and then when they came on and they talked about the, I forget what the 50, Slow-Mo always talks about Phil Spencer needs to stop doing so many interviews. So it's so many that he talked about. So, but it was so many that he did, but pretty much 9 out of 10 times he would just bring up Starfield, and it just put 2 and 2 together. And like Jeff Grubb said, it's like, no one knows 100%. It could be 80, 70%, but for the most part, I am very confident that game is going to come in, going off of what Slow-Mo and what you guys just said about how their cadence is on literally talking about a game and saying, oh, guess what? It's coming out 4 months from now or 3 months from now. I think that would be a good thing. And then that it instantly takes them from being just a game of Halo this holiday to having Starfield on the map too. And even if that game does end up being something like cross-platform and it does go to PlayStation, it's still going to be known as an Xbox game that also is coming around the same time as Halo. And how many people might make the decision that has a chance to hasn't picked up their PlayStation 5 yet, and they may see that Xbox Series X before it comes out and say, what, Starfield's going to be over there and Halo's going to be over there, and it's going to be in Game Pass, and all I got to do is pay a subscription fee. That might be something that can move the needle, and I think that's the direction that they may go with it.
Yeah. I mean, but oh, go ahead, Jeff. I'm sorry.
I was just gonna say real quick that I think that game has the potential to be sort of like a big event, and you know, I think I think they're putting a lot of effort into making sure their technology looks nice and polished and updated, and making this game look like a next gen game, making it look like something that really that we should be excited for in a way that hasn't really happened, I guess, in a long time, at least for me. Like I know people are super into the first party PlayStation games. I'm not too into I like Spider-Man. I'm not too into the first party Xbox games. Something like a spiritual successor to Skyrim in space, that is totally my jam. And I think it's a lot of people, like, when they hear that, they're gonna be like, okay, yeah, that's always what I've dreamed of. I've always imagined what that would be like. Let's see if they can deliver. And if it like lives up to like even like 80% of what people have thought about in their head as a potential for a game like that, it's going to get a lot of buzz. Whether or not they deliver, we'll see. These games can always drop the ball, but I think it's going to be a big buzz building moment where if it does show up at E3, it could very easily be like the talk of the show.
Oh, I agree. I really do hope, because it's going to be running on the Creation Engine. Then they said they upgraded the Creation Engine, but then I also recall them saying that Creation Engine was upgraded for Fallout 76, and people were pointing to a lot of the little areas where, like, graphically, I'm like, this looked like Xbox 360 over here. But
there were some bad bugs in that game that made it from Fallout 4 to 76 too. You remember that?
Exactly, and that's what I'm kind of hoping. Like, visually fine, it need to be upgraded visually. As B Money used to always say, like, Bethesda games got ham faces. That's so right. So they need to upgrade it visually. But my bigger issue is, like, it's the logic side of things. It's the code. It's
Subway meat.
Yeah.
Subway meat. Subway meat's got like that blue tint to it. You guys know what I'm talking about?
That's where the deliciousness comes from. I know what you mean.
That's why people go to Subway.
That's where the tasty lives.
That's for the blue meat. Okay. Oh man, no, but I mean, I think people, especially coming off the heels of Cyberpunk, where the bugs really destroyed the experience for a lot of people. I mean, underneath it all, a decent game with a really good story, but it's hard to enjoy it when, like, every 5 minutes there's like something glaring bad and not working correctly happening right in front of you. You're just like, I can't escape these bugs.
I mean, that's been happening for years with Bethesda games, and I mean, Skyrim doesn't stop selling. I think that if it matters to you, it matters to you, and I fully respect that and understand that. But that jank is a little bit inherent. And I know people want to say, no, these games should be perfectly polished. This stuff should never happen. But when you have a game where every single physical object in the game is something you could pick up and move around, and that is core to the way that the world works, you sort of like, it would take, a million monkeys banging on the game for a million years to fully QA test these games. It really would. And then to fix the bugs, it's like another million years. It literally goes into millions of years to for a game as complicated as Skyrim to work out all of the potential issues.
But then how the community fix it with mods?
I think the community sort of. Yeah, so
they have the million monkeys.
that is part of it. It's like a lot of once it gets out into the world, the community really does work together really well. But I mean, you're not wrong. It's there is a point where when it gets out to the wild, the community does such a good job. You were like, why can't they just do this? But we see that with a lot of games. I think it's just a matter of known shippables. They say it reaches a certain point and that's good enough, and it's been proven that the games will sell even if it reaches that point. So I mean, yeah, we could criticize them for treating the game that way, but I just don't want to get to a point where we are cutting off the nose of what makes these games special to spite the face. I like Skyrim. I like its jank. I like the fact that I can keep adding on mods and it messes with these systems even more. That's where I play these games. That's where I get my fun. And if we need to start sanding off those rough edges, I always get afraid of it might lose its magic a little bit. But I appreciate what you're saying. Yeah, you're right. If the community can fix it, why can't they? There's no argument against that. You're right.
Yeah. And Jeff, I fully understand how you feel, because I could tell you really enjoy those games. So for you, it's my level of enjoyment supersedes the jank, the bugs and issues. But and maybe it's also because coming up, back when Skyrim was humongous and everyone wanted to play it, I was still playing BioWare RPG. So for me, it was just the big sandbox thing. It ain't that big a deal for me. So it's right. Not, when it comes to what we care for in our RPGs, we're a little bit different. But I still see things like the Outer Worlds, for example. Obsidian, I think really, as I would say, they put their foot in it with that one. They really killed it with that game. It was awesome. Had kind of that Fallout feel to it, and its aesthetic and its gameplay, yet wasn't super buggy either. And although there was one kind of pretty decent sized bug on the PC version at the end of the game that prevented me from doing the final mission without firing my gun. I was trying to get that achievement where you can just go through and use your persuasion and intelligence to basically finish the game without it. But regardless of that, it wasn't as buggy as I have seen with previous Bethesda games. And I just I understand no game ever releases with no bugs. Even with say God of War, which people would say it had no bugs. I had a few bugs with that game, but still, overall enjoyed it. I would like that level of stability at launch, the way the Outer Worlds was with Starfield. If it's there, I'm all in. If it's not, I'm kind of all right, well, let me wait till some mods come out. Let me wait till they fix a couple things before I jump in.
Yeah, I get that.
I think it's the variables, though, right? I always relate game development back, when I talk to any developers with what I do with with data and stuff like that. It's the more variables you have, the harder it is to have something work well. And I don't know that there really is any other games on the market that have as much of a sandbox as Bethesda games. And I think their fans know that, they know what they're getting into with those games. And yeah, like you're saying, Slow-Mo, they aren't for everybody. But for people, I think that if you're really into the sandbox stuff, you kind of are used to it, I guess, because the more moving parts you have, the harder it is to kind of test every single combination and possibility and polish all of that stuff. So it does really take them getting it out into the world. And at the end of the day, they're going to have a few hundred people building this, and then when you have millions of as Jeff put it, monkeys pounding away at it, then it really starts to get better over time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, it's funny. I always thought that maybe the running joke with Bethesda games is Fallout, the jank and the bugs are kind of the charm of the game. It's kind of
too, yeah.
It's real quick. Let me get these super chats. Neil Wise with the $2 super chat says Bethesda jank not flying in 2021, i.e. Fallout 76.
The Elder Scrolls Skyrim has 20,000 players right now on Steam. So, maybe, but I think the jank's going to do just fine.
Yeah, I think so too. Darksia with the final super chat says super sticker.
Super sticker.
So
the super sticker says, "How's it going?"
Oh, is that okay?
Yeah, it doesn't translate well on StreamYard.
Okay, gotcha. I didn't see that. Okay. And then T-Rock 40. T-Rock says $2 super chat. Thank you, T-Rock. Big shout out to T-Rock, who was co-oping with me through Bloodborne, through some of the dungeons.
He was carrying you?
No, he was not carrying me, sir.
He was carrying you.
No, he was not carrying you. Let me just say something. No. There was no carrying because look, I had to beat the final boss battle on my own.
Okay. Let's wait.
And I beat bosses and New Game Plus by myself, sir. So no, we did co-op. We did co-op the dungeons, and I did some of the dungeons by myself. I beat the Bloodletting Beast by myself, sir.
T-Rock, please confirm what Enrique is saying.
Listen, that he had to be carried through any part of the game, then he got carried. That means you didn't do it by yourself.
Sir, where's your trophy?
I didn't say I played it.
Why not?
I can't get carried in something I ain't play.
Well,
hey, I will say that my understanding of these games is that they are like they build them to play like together, and there's no.
Jeff Grubb don't give him out.
Thank you, Jeff.
I Jeff's right. Out there feeling Jeff's shamed. Right. I don't want people out there feeling afraid. We are in this together. And if we're gonna play games together, God damn it, that's okay.
Yes, thank you, Jeff. Preach, Jeff. I'm telling you, those dungeons were actually designed for co-op. They really are.
You got a best friend now, right?
Jeff is spot on. Well said, Jeff.
There's games that they made, like that company's made games where you can't bring in multiple people. Sekiro.
I'm not going to disagree with you. That's true.
Yeah, if they didn't want you to play with other people, they would make it that way. Like,
exactly. Forte, if they didn't want you to co-op, there'd be no online co-op.
Yeah. Us aging gamers have to stick together.
And Sekiro, which I beat, you have to do that by yourself. There's no summoning in Sekiro. You can't. There's none of that. So I forgot what I was going to say now because I was rudely attacked.
Mission accomplished.
Yeah. Forte is Yep,
mission accomplished.
Mission accomplished. I really did forget what I was going to say. Oh, you know what I was going to ask you. So Jeff, with everything that's going on with Microsoft's acquisition, Satya's kind of hinted that they're not done. Do you see them making another big like Zenimax type acquisition? And if they did, I mean, does the conversation shift to wait a minute? Maybe this isn't good for the industry. Microsoft owning all these resources.
I'm sorry, Enrique. Take a look at what T-Rock 40 just said.
What did he say?
He says BRAP did hold his own, but there were a couple parts where he put the spurs to me. AKA, you put the saddle on him and
no.
He
had to go see the chiropractor after that one.
Yeah.
I listen. I think that they have a lot of money that's sitting in the bank, and there is not a lot of good places to put money right now. Interest rates are historic lows, and it's not like they're not even going to be able to go buy government bonds. That stuff's not paying. There's not a lot of good places to get your interest on money sitting in the bank. So what's a good way to use money? Buy a company that generates a profit. And there are a handful of video game publishing companies that you do that, that you start making some money using that money, and it starts creating a generating profit over time. That's good. And then if it's also contributing to this other initiative of Game Pass, that's good too. So, Microsoft's got a historic bank account right now. They have so much money in there. It's it really is literally burning a hole in their pocket, and they're also worried about inflation. Inflation's getting everyone keeps talking about it. We'll see if inflation happens, but everyone keeps saying, "Oh, inflation's coming," and if that money's sitting in the bank account and inflation happens, it's just going to start shrinking. It's going to be worth less, and they don't want that. So, what's a good way to use that money? Buying game companies is actually a really good investment for them right now. It serves multiple purposes, and so do I think the incentive is there? Obviously. The question is who's another Bethesda? Who else is out there that is? Yeah, it's a tough one.
Like Ubisoft? Would they be?
I was about to say
Ubisoft's so much more expensive though.
Yeah, too many employees,
and they don't want to be acquired. Bethesda was selling. Bethesda was on the chopping block. Yeah. Bethesda was like, hey, the people that own this company are a Robert Altman, a very old man who died during this process. Was like, hey, it's time to cash out, and everyone else around him was like, yeah, we're not sure if we're going to be able to run this company as good as you did. A lot of people really liked Robert Altman, And when he was on his way out, they're like, "Yeah, let's cash out now. Now's the time to do it." And making games is hard. And whenever we make a big bet, they don't seem to be paying off. So this is like a risky business to be in. Let's give it to someone who is willing to take that risk, and that's Microsoft. Ubisoft does not want to sell. Yves Guillemot and his family, they don't want to sell. They fought off of Vivendi tooth and nail.
I remember that.
They'll do the same thing with Microsoft. They do not want to sell. So I think that one's very unlikely. And then we've talked about it with like Japanese companies over and over. It's so hard for an American company to acquire a Japanese company. To me, at that point, it's almost like spend the money to start some studios in Japan instead. You can do that. That's possible. I think that's what happened with Tango Gameworks. That's why Bethesda had a Tango Gameworks. I think they paid the money to just start that studio. So I as far as acquisitions go, though, it's a tough ask. I think there's going to be maybe some smaller names that we haven't really heard of. I think in terms of like support studios, bring them in to help fill out this infrastructure of all these companies working together. Maybe something like that, but I don't know. I will be surprised if we ever get a headline as big as Bethesda again.
Yeah, I have a kind of a two birds one stone kind of suggestion that if they're trying to get another publisher that would also then in part they just acquire them, and then that publisher continues on to manage their developers and their games, so they don't have to do it themselves, and also get a bigger presence in the Eastern Hemisphere and the Japanese market. They could acquire, or at least attempt to acquire, Bandai Namco. As a publisher. They make a lot of games, and they are based in Tokyo, Japan. So that would actually kind of like solve two problems.
In a lot of other businesses too, right? They make toys and television shows.
True. They probably would have to
spin off.
They have to shave some stuff off before they can do that.
That's tough. Whole problem with them is Sega. Because Sega's in so many different things.
Well, Sega sold their arcade business, I think.
Yeah, they sold that. But if you're not getting Atlas from that deal, then no go for me, because Atlas is that deal.
Well, Sega's got a lot of PC presence now, so maybe there's something to Microsoft there. But I get what you're saying.
And that feels like the logical step. And I think Bethesda will help a lot of that. But, I, as much as we like to talk about console, and that seems to be like the focus on Twitter right now, is like who's going to sell the most consoles. That's really where Microsoft's over the next couple of years, where they're going to have the most opportunity to expand Game Pass subs, is really going to be on the PC side. Them getting, Bethesda.net, getting some of those games working over there so that PC gamers trust the store. And then, having content that appeals to the PC gamer, because there's a lot more Steam gamers than there is Xboxes in the wild right now, and so like that feels like, to me, that feels like the more logical thing, and then also like looking at publishers that are kind of stuck in this like middle ground, I don't like Ubisoft, EA, Activision. Those guys are all fine. They all do the gas thing, and they're all games as a service, and they don't need to really change. But I think any publisher that's making single player games, it's kind of in that middle ground, is probably in like no man's land if they don't either merge or align with the subscription or do something like that, because it's like everything's either going towards free to play or or some sort of gas or subscription. It feels like that other that's selling a single player game for $70 doesn't feel like it's a good place to be in 2-3 years, or even now, really. So I do wonder, like, if Sega is, somebody like Sega is in a good spot for 2 years from now, if they don't find like their own Monster Hunter World or something like that to kind of continue to be like a cash cow for them.
Yeah. Real quick, we get the super chat from Viper XT. It's $5 super chat. Thank you, Viper. It says, what if Microsoft, or what if they, you're referring to Microsoft, what if they bought Steam?
No, it's not happening. It was almost spending a ton of money. I mean, they could afford it, but good grief, the amount of money they would have.
Steam's not for sale.
Yeah.
It just depends on when Gabe is ready to get out. When Gabe is ready to get out, then that's when it's going to happen. But that's a possibility. I mean, we can't sit here and poo-poo and say it could never happen, because
if Gabe wants to sell, you're right. Like, Microsoft would almost have to do it reflexively as like a defensive maneuver, because who else is like, you're going to let Tencent come in and buy it? Probably not if you're Microsoft. So yeah, that's, I mean, we'll see. I guess Steam could always go public at that time. That's probably what they would do instead of selling.
That's true. Yeah,
we'll just finally do an IPO where like it IPOs at $1,000 a share or something like that.
Shout out
to it would be so much money.
Shout out to the 6 stock of Roblox I bought under that IPO today.
That kind of engagement, that's the kind of money you can get on the stock market.
I bought 6 shares this morning.
I think I might jump in on that because watching my son play Roblox, I'm like,
I called my wife.
I don't get it.
Listen, I called my wife when I saw that they were going public today, and I was like, yo, if this stock drops lower than $70, I need about $500 from you. And she was like, I was like, and she said, well, how much? I said, we're going to put $1,000 in. So I bought in right when I got lucky too, because they didn't go live at, they went live about 2:00 in the afternoon. And I caught it when it was at like $68. So I was like, oh, so it's like 70 right now. But I bought $1,000 worth, man. Cause she's like, why should we do that? I said, do you know how much we buy for our daughter in Roblox? We're not the only ones.
I have one more question for Jeff before we wrap up the show. With these big moves that Microsoft's making, all these studio acquisitions now, Bethesda, does Sony need to respond with something? Do they need to go out and acquire, another studio? I mean, we know they acquired Insomniac recently, but do they need to do anything else, in your opinion?
I'm like mostly no, but I think long term they need to think about how the industry could change if the Netflix of games model really does take off and it is all services, and in 5 years the idea of buying a game is as absurd as going out and buying an album or going out and buying a movie, to most people. I know people are always going to respond to that with like, well, I buy movies, and good for you, but most people don't. Most people stream this stuff, and if games go that way, and I think there's a lot of reasons to think gaming will take a little bit longer to reach that point. I think we see the way people treat Steam, and so people like to buy and own games. I get that, but there are a lot of people out there that don't buy a lot of games right now that might get in for the subscription service, and at a certain point it's going to reach that critical mass where that's just where things start to go, and that's the kind of games that people are going to develop, games that work good as streaming games. And if that happens, Sony could find themselves in a situation where they're looking around and being like, oh, the PlayStation model that we ran on for decades doesn't quite make sense in this world anymore. Now, I think they'll be able to figure it out, but I think they need to be proactive and not reactive, because PlayStation's very profitable, and it's one of Sony's main business models right now that actually works. And so they don't want to mess that up too bad. So I get why they would be hesitant, but they should be proactive to protect that and think what they could be doing next to get to fight back in the long term. In the near term, they don't need to do much, right? They've made PS Plus very attractive. PS Plus seems like a very good deal right now with the way that they're putting Final Fantasy on there and all this other stuff. And they have those games that their fans really like, these big single player narrative, like movie like experiences, blockbuster like experiences. Those games are what their audience wants, and it gets people to buy a lot of PlayStation 5s, and that's working well too. So I think that they're in a good position in the near term, and they don't need to do they don't need to do anything rash right now. They just need to think about their strategy and see if they can come up with the next thing to sort of continue to disrupt the marketplace in the way that Microsoft is with Game Pass, so that it's not like, oh, Game Pass just becomes the default. And if they could think about ways to do that, they'll be just fine.
I agree. Well said.
I think the biggest thing is, and Slomo alludes to this a lot, where he talks about the positions that Sony buys themselves into. They just recently put money into Epic. They had stock options inside of Square, and so they can see the development of stuff, and they can see what they can pinpoint and get a seat at the table to actually, get a chance to see some of this stuff before it comes out and say, we want to get some type of exclusive content or deal around this stuff. So they do a really good job, better than most companies do when it comes to getting those second and third party deals that really make their system stand out. But ultimately, it's just going to come down to a numbers game. If Microsoft has a lot of publishers putting out a bunch of stuff on their system, and Sony is just spending money on stuff that is only going to be a timed exclusive thing for them, then that's the further we get into that ecosystem, the more it's going to hurt Sony in the end. But ultimately, like he said, right now they don't have to do anything because they're like, as usual, they're the market leader. I mean, Switch is up there, but the Switch is always going to be in its own little lane compared to what Xbox and PlayStation do. It just really comes down to how invested do they want to be inside of that streaming ecosystem or inside of that subscription ecosystem. I think I tell people all the time, and Jeff talked about it earlier, Microsoft is about services. I've been saying it for over a year. I'm happy they made that deal and made that move to Game Pass because it speaks to their core competency of what the company is. They always been about services, servers, infrastructure. That's what Game Pass is to them. At PlayStation, it's always been about the hardware. That's, mobile phones and, cameras and all that types of stuff, and that speaks to what their competency. That's why they value the sale of hardware more than anything.
Yeah, hardware and products.
So it speaks to what their competencies are. So at a certain point, Sony is going to have to make a decision and say, do we want to follow in the footsteps of another company that's doing it like on a sales side or a hardware side less than we are, but they're, pushing out, or the revenue is higher generating than ours is, so that really where it actually comes into play. And at that point, Sony might just make the decision to just do exactly what Microsoft did. That's how PlayStation Plus being paid for was born. They didn't just do it overnight. They went an entire generation of people not paying. And they saw that, well, I guess Microsoft is just going to keep charging these people, and these people ain't going to say nothing. So we can do the same thing. And I think that's what happens.
I think one thing people should keep in mind, I think there always seems to be this attitude in the gaming community, like if you're not in first, you're last, or you should die. But,
exactly.
But you think about it, we do de facto think about Netflix when we think about streaming, but then you have, Amazon Prime, you have Disney that just hit 100 million, you have, HBO streaming, and I even think about it as a customer. Like today, for less than I used to pay for Comcast cable, I have the YouTube TV and have 4 other streaming services, and it's because these services can rely on that scale and eliminate some of these middlemen costs, because they don't really make anything on hardware, and so again, I think people kind of underestimate that Sony can still come in. They could even come in late. We're seeing it again with Disney, right? They weren't there at the beginning, but they had the IPs, and you can come in late and you can still find your spot in the market. It's always best to be the first mover, right? Like be the guy be the Kleenex or the Netflix of whatever industry. But it doesn't mean that Sony's going to suddenly go under because they're not leading that market.
Sony is in a more precarious position just because they don't have all this other all these other industries to fall back on. Microsoft makes a lot of money from enterprise solutions and from their other services, and they really do have just billions of dollars sitting around that they're doing nothing with. So and Sony doesn't have that, and also it's more challenging for Sony because Sony hasn't necessarily proven as a corporation that they are good at taking one business and shifting it to another business model. And in the 90s, Microsoft sold Windows as a packaged product, and it was into OEMs, and they included it in their computers, and that was their business model. And then when the internet came, the internet kind of mixed that up and really shook things up, and Microsoft fell behind internet-based companies. And then Microsoft was like, well, we're going to shift to services, and now they make more money from services than they ever made from selling Windows. And the idea that they can, and the idea that doesn't happen really with a lot of corporations. Very few corporations figure out okay, we're going to become one of the wealthiest corporations in the history of the world with one business model. And when that stops working quite as well, we're going to shift to another one that's even more successful. And I think Microsoft is really prides itself on being able to make a shift like that. And other corporations look at that and they don't know how to replicate that. It's a very challenging thing. And again, Microsoft might have an advantage here because they are shifting from a business model of selling products to a business model of services, a shift they've made before. and I think your point is still taken. Like, Sony could still come in here and be the Disney Plus to Netflix. They don't want to get in a situation where they are the Paramount Plus or one of these other ones where, and they can't take too long doing this, because again, if PlayStation doesn't quite make a lot of money, if there's like one bad year, that really hurts Sony overall as a corporation, because so much of their profits come from PlayStation. So it's slightly more precarious. I think they'll figure it out. There's a lot of smart people there that really understand games, and they have a lot of fans that want to support them. And if they just sort of make those two things work together, they're going to be just fine. But they are just slightly more precarious.
Yeah. That's a great point. On that note, I do want to go ahead and wrap up the show. I just want to say something. Great show this evening. Jeff, seriously, it's always a pleasure having you on. Like, just really enjoy the conversation around the games and everything. And, we got to get you back on, maybe closer to maybe E3, maybe a couple months down the road here as we get closer
E3
to
ain't a thing.
Or maybe not E3, maybe before E3, Jeff, but we'd love to get you back on again.
Yeah. Sure.
Yeah.
Let's call it E3 season, because it won't, whatever comes out around the time that should have been E3 won't be called E3, but it's going to be trying to do E3 kind of thing. So
we are all still going to I'm going to call it E3 or whatever. Right. We'll get it. Brad, thank you for having me on. I really appreciate it. You're a bunch of smart boys. I'll say that much about y'all. You guys know what you're talking about. So
thank you. We like to think that. Thank you. I appreciate that, Jeff.
That's a compliment.
I think I like to think that we are. Usually,
you never know.
But, you never know. Given any given Wednesday, that could probably change, Jeff. But
we're in a bubble.
Next week, Enrique's his thoughts are going to change like Michigan weather.
Hey, you know what?
Hey, it was 70 this week.
Yeah, it was 70.
5 feet of snow here in Denver. Over the weekend. So I'm literally going to the grocery store this tomorrow. And we're gonna get all the food we need for a week.
Wow, that's wild. 70 to 5 feet of snow. Wow.
Yep.
But
68 degrees here in Michigan today. That was weird.
Yeah, with 68 over here too. But no, seriously, Jeff, got to get you back on again. Always a pleasure. If you want to be found on the Twitters, let everyone know where they can find you.
Yeah, just get me at Jeff Grubb. And a lot of people probably know about my Twitter, but I'm also doing more stuff on YouTube now. So youtube.com/Jeffrey Grubb. I did kind of a tester show, like an episode 0 for an idea I'm having called The Game Mess. So if you knew about the Jeff Grubb Summer Game Mess, I'm trying to turn that into like a show where we could talk about what's happening, sort of a news program. So check that out and let me know what you think.
Awesome. Appreciate it, Jeff. Thank you again. Big shout out to everyone in the live chat. Thank you, everyone, for stopping by to hang out with us. Also want to give the rest of the panel some quick outros. You got my man B Money 101. B, let everyone know where they can find you.
Same place, same name, B Money 101, everywhere. So hit me up.
All right, B. And we have OBM, One Bad Mother. OBM, I'm not going to call you an insider, but
no, I'm not an insider. Thanks for having me on again, Enrique.
Absolutely, man.
It's always a fun time to come on with my friends over here. And Jeff, it was a pleasure to be on the show with you. I'm really going to be excited to say I was on the show when you broke the news. And just to remind everybody in the gaming media that's listening, 85% chance that Starfield's coming out this year.
Yep, take it to the bank.
Take it to the bank.
So it was really a lot of fun and always, Jeff, it's always great to listen to you because I think you bring a lot of insight and perspective from that, that you really don't hear in a lot of other places. And if anybody ever wants to find me, I am part of the Xbox era staff. I do write as slow as George R.R. Martin, maybe slower, but I will have a Game Pass article up soon. And you can also find me on at You Had Me at Halo, which is a newish podcast for Halo. But again, thanks again, guys. Appreciate having me.
This is a great show right there, man. They're all Spartans.
Yeah, we're all Spartans.
And,
go ahead.
Yeah, and, that gentleman's voice is Gaming Forte. Forte, let me know where they can find you, sir.
First of all, man, this is a great show. Jeff, thanks for coming through as always. Appreciate it. I want to dedicate next week's episode to the homie B Money because B Money barely got a chance to say anything to things. He says, I feel bad. So B Money, next week you are literally going to lead the show, and you're going to talk as much as you want to talk, sir. Because my man ain't. I was listening. Say, man, B Money ain't said nothing, but you know,
y'all know I don't care about them Bethesda games, so I'll let y'all have it, man.
Well, yeah, we know what B Money cares about. He cares about that NBA 2K that BRAP is never going to play him in. So we're going to move on from that. But yeah, man, great show. But Gaming Forte everywhere, YouTube, Twitter, Xbox Live, PlayStation. Check us out. Slow-Mo has the icon up. DPS Podcast tomorrow night at 9 p.m. We have special guests, the host of this show, BRAP, joining us, and it's going to be a fun afternoon. And I can't wait to see you guys all there. So you guys have a good week, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Yeah, looking forward to coming on DPS. It's been a couple months or weeks, or I think a couple months since I've been on last, but looking forward to that. And we got my man, Mr. Slow-Mo Backslap, the man of many backslaps. Slow-Mo, where we can find you, man.
Yeah, you guys can find me tomorrow, as Forte said, on his channel with another episode of the DPS podcast with Mr. Enrique over here. We'll be talking about, all some of the same topics we talked about tonight and some other stuff, as well as Enrique's Matrix level ducking and dodging of B Money and NBA 2K. We'll also be just getting into whatever else that we normally do. You know how we guys, how we do it. So come check us out. Also check out my YouTube channel. I am closing in on 1,000 subs.
Bugsnax.
Where I have to play Bugsnax. I have to live stream myself playing Bugsnax. Oh joy. So yeah. Come check the channel out. If you like it, sub, please. I appreciate it. And you guys have a great night, man.
Awesome. And again, everyone in the live chat, thank you so much for hanging out with us this evening. Really appreciate each and every one of you. If you haven't done so already, pound the like button. If you're new to the channel, first time watching, subscribe and hit the bell notification so you're alerted when we go live. On that note, everyone, have a great rest of the evening. Stay safe. Enjoy gaming. We'll catch you next Wednesday at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. Peace.